Lu Qingxue was burning with anxiety. She formed hand seals, and the temperature around her plummeted. Milky white ice mist billowed out from her body, instantly spreading across a 50-meter radius. Wherever the ice mist swept across, water surfaces froze, frost condensed in the air, and even sand and gravel along the riverbank were coated with a layer of white rime. Almost at the same instant, several pale blue ice cones took shape within the ice mist and shot silently toward Hichang. Polar blue ice. Qingxue, your opponent is me. Wang Zikai's voice drifted out of the ice mist, laced with mockery. Streaks of purple electric arcs tore through the ice mist, striking every single polar blue ice cone with pinpoint accuracy. Crack, crack, crack. The ice crystals shattered into countless fine fragments. In Wang Zikai's right palm, a purple electric spear coalesced, electric arcs flickering and crackling. A smirk tugged at his lips. Purple divine thunder is the natural bane of ice-type arts. You ought to know that. Lu Qingxue ground her teeth and formed another set of hand seals. Thicker ice mist surged forth from within her. The domain of ice kept expanding. Yet Wang Zikai merely waved his hand casually. The purple electric spear transformed into an electric net that enveloped the entire ice domain. Ice and lightning clashed in midair, hissing as steam billowed outward. Wang Zikai, get out of my way. Blood surged in Lu Qingxue's chest. She pushed her ice soul physique to its utmost limit. Moisture in the air condensed into countless fine ice needles, which showered toward Wang Zikai. Wang Zikai did not even move. Every ice needle was shattered by purple electric arcs 1 meter before reaching him. Watching Lu Qingxue fight with everything she had, the smile faded from his face, replaced by cold jealousy. Are you really fond of that boy? What is so great about him? A nobody from Jiangqing. Does he deserve you risking your life for him? That is none of your business. Lu Qingxue gritted her teeth. She activated the Ice Soul Jadebone formula once more, sending countless ice cones hurtling at the purple electric net. Stubborn fool. Wang Zikai snorted coldly, and the electric net began to contract. Elsewhere, Chu Yun had been forced back to the banks of the Iron Thread River. Less than 5 meters behind him churned the river teeming with black worm swarms. Iron thread worms on the surface seemed to sense living prey. They poked their heads out, black tentacles waving through the air with a rustling sound. Several exceptionally long worms had already reached the riverbank, stopping less than half a meter from Chu Yun's ankles. Hichang's assaults grew fiercer. Punch after punch rained down, each strike carrying concussive force that roiled Chu Yun's internal qi and blood. The silver radiance of his scale armor dimmed further, appearing to have reached its breaking point. Yet Chu Yun noticed a detail. Hichang always positioned himself so as to keep his distance from the Iron Thread River. A Grandmaster's battle instinct made him instinctively shun all potential dangers. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of Chu Yun's mouth. This was his chance. Hichang threw another punch straight for Chu Yun's face. Instead of dodging this time, Chu Yun ducked sharply so the fist grazed past his scalp. Leaning forward, he delivered an Iron Mountain charge toward Hichang's torso. Hichang sneered and pushed down with his left hand, easily deflecting the charge. Now, Chu Yun twisted his body like an eel and slipped under Hichang's armpit. It was an extremely risky maneuver, leaving his back fully exposed to his foe. But this move instantly swapped their positions. Chu Yun now stood further inland on the riverbank. Hichang stood less than 3 meters from the edge, with the worm-infested, death-churned river right behind him. Realizing Chu Yun's intent, Hichang let out a sneer full of disdain. Trying to drive me into the Iron Thread River? Chu Yun said nothing. The moment Hichang steadied his footing, snap! Chu Yun snapped his fingers. Dozens of red sparks flew from his fingertips toward Hichang's face. Hichang could tell these were no ordinary flames, but spirit fire forged through thought power. Back in Chu Yun's earlier fight against Wang Zikai, Hichang had already realized Chu Yun was a thought master. Naturally, he had taken precautions. Hichang scoffed and shifted his body, nimbly evading every wisp of fire. Chu Yun's target, however, had never been Hichang. It was the Iron Thread worms behind him. Devoid of complex thought and driven only by primal instinct, the disturbed Iron Thread worms reared up. Their black bodies coiled like springs and lashed out, wrapping around Hichang's right leg. Hichang glanced down and chopped with his left hand. An Iron Thread worm snapped apart, splattering black bodily fluids across the ground. Cheap trick. Do you think these worms can trap me? Dream on. Take this art. Burn the heavens and boil the seas. Chu Yun swept his palm wide, and surging red fire blazed forth. Hichang raised his palm and swatted away every incoming flame, chuckling scornfully. Burn the heavens and boil the seas. You could barely roast a chicken wing. When had Chu Yun mastered burn the heavens and boil the seas? He had not. He had shouted the name purely to draw He Chang's attention. A faint smirk curved Chu Yun's lips. He lifted his right hand and pointed his index finger at He Chang's ankle. Upon the broken worm carcass there clung a tiny wisp of purple fire, no bigger than a mung bean, nearly invisible under sunlight. Strangely enough, the fire gave off no heat. Alarm bells blared inside He Chang's mind. A grandmaster's intuition screamed that this flame was lethally dangerous. He tried to channel his power to extinguish it, only to find the purple fire clung to him like a festering curse. It ignored his protective chi barrier and burned straight through his ankle into his spiritual sea. Indescribable searing agony exploded deep within his bones, as if countless red-hot steel needles were piercing his spiritual sea all at once. The purple fire burned not flesh or muscle, but the soul itself. Airk! He Chang let out a blood-curdling scream and froze rigid. Chu Yun lunged forward, channeling the full might of 8 extremes prison-subduing strength into his right leg. He kicked He Chang square in the chest. Boom! He Chang's body flew backward like a broken kite and plummeted toward the Iron Thread River. The instant he hit the water, iron thread worms, already stirred into frenzy by the fire, swarmed toward him from every direction like sharks scenting blood, coiling around his limbs. What kind of fire is this? He Chang's voice echoed from within the writhing swarm, hoarse and trembling. He struggled, trying to rally his chi and blood to shake off the worms. Yet every exertion only made the purple fire burn hotter. Agony racked his body, robbing him of the ability to gather his strength. Chu Yun stood on the riverbank, looking down at him. The dead have no right to speak to me. He Chang's body was dragged deep into the worm horde. The river's surface roiled. Purple fire spread through the swarm, blooming like eerie blossoms across the black sea of worms. Then something astonishing happened. The iron thread worm swarm retreated as though facing a natural predator, scattering in all directions to clear a 100-meter-wide forbidden zone on the river. At its center lay He Chang's mangled corpse atop exposed riverbed rock. The purple fire continued to burn quietly upon his remains. Worms circled restlessly at the zone's perimeter, none daring to cross the invisible boundary. Chu Yun raised an eyebrow. These worms were smarter than he had imagined. They too knew fear of death. He looked away and mentally reassessed Samadhi True Fire. Its destructive power was indeed terrifying, capable of felling even a grandmaster. Yet it possessed glaring flaws. It had to make physical contact with its target to take effect. His victory today relied half on clever stratagem and half on He Chang's overconfidence. If He Chang had fought at full strength from the start, never letting the worms touch him. If he had been more wary of that wisp of purple flame. If there were no what-ifs. But what of the next time? What if he faced opponents vastly superior to him in cultivation? For all its power, Samadhi True Fire was useless if it could not reach its foe. He needed to raise his chi and blood and advance to higher realms. One's own power was the true foundation. Outside tools were only secondary. Chu Yun drew a deep breath and set aside these thoughts. His gaze shifted to the other side of the battlefield. Lu Qingxue and Wang Zikai had both halted their fight. Both stared fixedly at the burning corpse in the middle of the Iron Thread River, each wearing a different expression. Shock flooded Lu Qingxue's clear, cold eyes. She had suspected Chu Yun had great power and guessed he was a thought master. But she had never expected him to slay a grandmaster. Yet he had, with strange purple fire she had never seen before. Lu Qingxue turned instinctively toward Chu Yun. The youth stood on the riverbank, smudges of dirt marking his black tracksuit. His expression was calm, far too calm for someone who had just killed a grandmaster. It was as if the deed meant nothing to him. Wang Zikai's face was beyond ghastly. His eyes bulged as though ready to pop out of their sockets. He Chang dead? That grandmaster who had fought demonic beasts in the abyss for 20 years. The man Wang Zikai's father had hired at enormous cost. 3,000-year-old blood Ganoderma, a grade D rank middle martial art, plus 30,000 merit points. Also, He Chang could help him seize the Tingjun sword within the sword mount. He had not even laid eyes on the Tingjun sword, and now he was dead, slain by an 18-year-old boy. Wang Zikai began to doubt whether He Chang had ever truly been a grandmaster. His mind went completely blank. He forgot to sustain his purple divine thunder electric net. Purple arcs flickered in his palm like a failing light bulb before dying away. Giving them no time to process what had happened, Chu Yun strode over from the riverbank. He blurred forward like a phantom, bursting into combat against Wang Zikai's 3 bodyguards. Punches, elbow strikes, knee blows, no flourishes, Only the most vicious close-quarter killing techniques of 8 Extreme's fist. Boom, boom, boom. 3 dull impacts sounded almost as one. Before they could even scream, the 3 guards flew backward like broken kites and crashed straight into the Iron Thread River, instantly swallowed by the Black Worm horde. Wang Zikai stood rooted to the spot, his face deathly pale. His 3 bodyguards were dead. He Chong was dead. He stood completely alone. Impossible. How could you? This cannot be. Chu Yun looked at Wang Zikai. His gaze was cold and still, like that of a corpse. The moment Wang Zikai met those eyes, every hair on his body stood on end. A far more menacing aura emanated from Chu Yun than from Song Qingtian. For all his strength, Song Qingtian still upheld a warrior's code and avoided killing lightly. There was no telling what boundaries this young man would respect. Wang Zikai stumbled backward. His foot slipped on loose river rock, nearly sending him tumbling. The young master of the Wang clan, the youngest peak thought master in 100 years, now cut a wretched figure like a beaten stray dog. You cannot kill me. I am the young master of the Wang clan. My father is a martial venerable, my grandfather a martial emperor. My clan has held sway over Zhongzhou for 300 years. Kill me, and the Wang clan will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Chu Yun smiled faintly, as if they would spare me even if I let you live. Wang Zikai's face twitched. Deep down he knew his words rang hollow. Yet in the face of death he grasped at whatever he could. Spare my life, and I will pretend He Chong's death never happened. Take whatever resources the Wang clan possesses. The Tingjun sword is yours. Millennium Blood Ganoderma, Heaven Great Arts. I will give you all of them. Lu Qingxue can be yours as well. I swear I will never trouble you again. He twisted toward Lu Qingxue and pleaded. Qingxue, for the years we have known each other, begged Chu Yun to spare me. Lu Qingxue looked on with undisguised contempt and snapped angrily. Shameless. You are the young master of a great clan. Where is a warrior's dignity? Begging for your life like this is no way for a man to act. Enough of your acting. Time for you to die. I have better things to do. Growing impatient, Chu Yun raised his palm to strike Wang Zikai down. Terrified for his life, Wang Zikai hurled his purple electric spear, not at Chu Yun, but straight at Lu Qingxue. The spear tore through the air at blistering speed. Simultaneously, 3-inch-long white bone nails slid from his sleeve into his fingers. He flicked his wrist, sending the 3 projectiles whistling toward Chu Yun's throat, heart, and chi-si. An open feint paired with a hidden lethal strike. This was the Wang clan's secret art, mother-son life-taking nails. The electric spear, the mother, drew attention. The bone nails, the son, sealed every avenue of escape. He had trained this technique for 5 years, and it had never failed. Watch out, Lu Qingxue shouted. Chu Yun's great thought master perception encompassed every detail of the surrounding space. The trajectory of the spear and nails, Wang Zikai's breathing rhythm, the beat of his heart, all were crystal clear in his mind. Chu Yun shifted slightly. All 3 bone nails whistled past his skin. He lifted his right hand and spread his fingers. Purple fire surged from his palm, forming a thin wall of flame. The instant the electric spear slammed into the flame wall, it hissed like ice plunging into boiling water. It vanished in less than a fraction of a second. Wang Zikai's pupils constricted. Having failed to kill Chu Yun even at point-blank range, he knew flight was his only hope. Purple electric currents crawled across his skin like serpents. His hair stood on end, lightning glinting deep in his pupils as crackling electricity enveloped his whole body. Purple divine thunder, thunder escape. This was the Wang clan's most prized life-saving secret skill. At the cost of burning one's own chi and blood, the user partially transformed their body into elemental lightning, multiplying speed 5-fold and evading ordinary attacks. The price was steep. Every second sustained burned away a month's worth of cultivated chi and blood. But survival justified any cost. Wang Zikai blurred into a streak of purple lightning and bolted westward. Fast. Incredibly fast. His afterimage lingered behind while his real body surged 100 meters away. Chu Yun's eyes narrowed. His great thought master spiritual sense locked onto the lightning-fast figure, holding tight to Wang Zikai's aura like an invisible shackle. He stamped his foot hard against the ground. A shockwave exploded outward. His form blurred forward, nearly matching the speed of thunder escape. As he gave chase, Chu Yun flicked his fingers repeatedly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Wisp after wisp of red fire shot forth like burning projectiles, cutting off Wang Zikai's escape routes. A fist-sized crater burst in the ground 5 meters ahead of Wang Zikai, red flames spreading outward. Fire wove into an invisible net, steadily compressing his avenues of flight. Wang Zikai gritted his teeth and swerved sharply, slipping through a gap between two sheets of flame. Just as he thought he might get away, a pale blue ice wall erupted abruptly from the ground directly in his path. Polar blue ice. Lu Qingxue had caught up. Gritting her teeth, she conjured 3 successive ice barriers across his escape route. Wang Zikai crashed through the first wall, his speed dropping sharply. He shattered the second. Before he could break through the third, a dark silhouette materialized like a specter directly behind him. Chu Yun reached out, claw-like fingers sheathed in thin purple flame. Ignoring the raging lightning of his elemental defense, he seized Wang Zikai by the nape and slammed his face hard into the dirt. Thud! Wang Zikai's face was driven into mud. His thunder escape state flickered violently under suppression from the purple fire, the elemental protective layer fading visibly. Let go of me! Wang Zikai thrashed wildly like a fish out of water. The soul-searing torment of the purple fire gnawed at him, a pain even thunder escape could not ward off. Chu Yun raised his left index finger. A wisp of purple fire danced at its tip. Catching sight of that horrifying flame out of the corner of his eye, Wang Zikai flailed, his voice breaking into desperate sobs. Please, spare me. I will give you anything you want. I will never dare oppose you again. I will serve you as beast and servant, anything. Chu Yun's face remained impassive. He let the wisp of purple fire drift down and land on the bare skin of Wang Zikai's nape. Too late. The moment fire touched skin, Wang Zikai's eyes flew wide open. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out at first. Agony, unbearable soul-scorching agony. Aya! A shrill scream finally tore free from his throat, the howl of a dying beast. May you suffer a terrible fate. Chu Yun, I will haunt you as a ghost. The Wang clan will dismember you. They will exterminate the Lu clan alongside you. With every curse, Chu Yun's killing intent grew colder, and more purple fire poured forth from his fingertips. Thread after thread of purple fire burst from Wang Zikai's 7 apertures, swirling above his head and blooming strangely into a bewitching peach blossom. The instant the peach blossom fully unfurled, Wang Zikai's screams fell silent. His body went limp. His pupils dilated, his life force extinguished. His physical form remained intact, yet his soul had been completely incinerated by Samadhi true fire. Lu Qingxue hurried over. Chu Yun gave her a thumbs up. He had not expected her to usually seem reserved, yet stand firm when it truly mattered. Without those 3 ice walls to slow Wang Zikai down and stop him fleeing the secret realm, the trouble they would face would be unimaginable. Well done, Chu Yun said. Lu Qingxue stared down at Wang Zikai's corpse, heavy worry etched across her features. As a direct descendant of one of the 4 great clans, she understood better than most how much weight the title Young Master carried. To preserve the Wang clan's honor, once word of Wang Zikai's death reached home, their martial emperor would spare no expense hunting down the killer. He would even lay waste to the entire Kanglan secret realm if necessary. As prime suspects, she and Chu Yun would become the Wang clan's primary targets for vengeance. She herself would likely receive full protection from the Lu clan once she obtained the cold marrow. But Chu Yun, though both had played a part in the killing, the whole conflict had originated because of her. She silently resolved to protect Chu Yun no matter what price she might have to pay. Chu Yun, completely unaware of Lu Qingxue's inner turmoil, knelt down to search the bodies. He stripped the dark, gold close, fitting soft armor from Wang Zikai's body without hesitation, then removed the storage ring from his finger. You. Lu Qingxue's lips parted, yet she held back whatever she had meant to say. Chu Yun twisted the ring around in his hand, studying it for a long while, without success. He turned toward her. How do I open this thing? It bears the Wang clan's blood-bound restriction. Only Wang Zikai himself could unlock it, Lu Qingxue explained. Damn. So it is useless then? Chu Yun frowned. Can I force it open? That would require a grandmaster, rank artifact forger, Lu Qingxue said earnestly. Still, I suggest you abandon the idea. If this ring appears out in the open, the Wang clan will sense it instantly. Then word of what happened will get out, and they will destroy us. Tricky. I hear his grandfather is a martial emperor after all. With that said, Chu Yun slipped the ring into his system storage space, tucked inside his robe. Lu Qingxue fell speechless. Had he even listened to a single word she had said? He had heard every warning and still stowed the ring away right in front of her eyes, utterly unafraid of the consequences. She sighed and gave up trying to reason with him. Chu Yun picked up the inner armor once more. What about this protective vest? Surely this was not custom, made by the Wang clan, was it? Lu Qingxue huffed. The black tortoise scale armor. It is a spirit-level defensive artifact. Though rare, it is not a Wang, clan exclusive. There should be nothing wrong with it. Without another word, Chu Yun began changing into the armor. His frost scales had been heavily damaged from the brutal fight against Hichong, and he had long coveted this black tortoise scale armor. Lu Qingshue's cheeks flushed, and she quickly turned her head away, catching a glimpse of his sturdy, toned physique out of the corner of her eye. Once he had finished dressing, Chu Yun lifted Wang Zikai's body and tossed it into the iron thread river. He brushed river silt from his palms. Let's go. If we linger, it will grow dark. Lu Qingxue glanced upward instinctively. Above the secret realm hung the same everlasting pale cyan radiance. This place knew no cycle of day and night. They followed the riverbank for roughly 200 meters before Chu Yun halted. This was the exact spot where Li Jun had tried to cross, where the river narrowed to its smallest width. Lu Qingxue eyed the driftwood scattered across the surface. These logs have all been trodden upon. They cannot bear our weight. We must press onward and find a safer crossing point. No, Chu Yun shook his head, his tone resolute. We cross here. Lu Qingxue stared at him, confused. But, use this. Chu Yun raised his right hand. Wispy purple flames seeped out from his fingertips. Lu Qingxue's pupils constricted. She had watched these very flames incinerate Hichong and pierce through Wang Zikai's thunder escape technique. What fire is that? She could not help asking. Samadhi true fire. Chu Yun did not hide the truth. It does not burn physical matter. It burns only souls. Iron thread worms possess no brains, yet they hold primitive consciousness. They can sense the thread of this flame. He had devised this plan the moment Hichong's corpse had fallen into the iron thread river. He paused and looked toward Lu Qingxue. Hold on to me. Lu Qingxue blinked. What? Hold on to me. I will carry you across the river. Chu Yun spoke matter-of-factly. The Samadhi true fire can repel the worm swarms, yet its range is limited. If you drift too far away, the worms will latch onto you, and I will not be able to save you in time. A faint blush crept up Lu Qingshue's ears. After half a second of hesitation, she reached out and grasped the hem of his robe. Grabbing my clothes? That will work too, Chu Yun said. Lu Qingxue followed closely behind, fingers clenched tight on his garment. Chu Yun stepped into the iron thread river. Purple fire spread outward from his palms, forming a 2-meter wide ring of flame encircling his body. Where the fire ring passed, the skittish iron thread worms recoiled as though scalded, fleeing to open up a clear passage. And so, the two trod along the riverbed and crossed unscathed the iron thread river that had devoured countless martial artists. The terrain rose sharply on the northern bank, revealing dry gravel ground. The instant Chu Yun set foot ashore, a sharp aura washed over him, as if countless invisible sword points were pressed against his throat. He stopped and lifted his gaze. Swords were driven deep into the mountain walls lining both sides of the valley. Some blades were broken half-way, their surfaces eaten away by rust. Some remained intact, their edges glinting cold. Others showed only their hilts protruding, the rest buried deep in rock for untold ages. Still more leaned crookedly upon the ground, tangled with withered vines like abandoned tombstones. From foothill to mountain peak, from the valley entrance to the far horizon, every inch of rock face was claimed by swords. No one knew who had planted them here, nor how many years they had stood. Glancing over, Chu Yun counted well over 1,000 swords within sight alone. The sword mound, Lu Qingxue said at his side, her voice heavy. Each sword here retains a wisp of its original wielder's sword intent. 10,000 years have turned their masters to dust, yet the will of the blades lingers on. They will attack every living being with vital energy. The stronger one's vitality, the greater the number of swords drawn to strike. Chu Yun nodded. Beyond the valley mouth clustered more than 10 people. Some leaned against boulders meditating to restore their strength. Others stared upward, studying the formation of swords on the cliffs. Every face wore a grave expression. Has young Miss Zhao been inside for nearly 2 hours already? Why is there still no sign of her? Have patience. The sword mound is no market square. Still, that black, cloaked bodyguard of Zhao Yueli is formidable. She single-handedly withstood hundreds of flying swords and carved a path for her young lady. Wait, once she wears the swords down, entering will be far less dangerous for the rest of us. Right? Conserve strength and dash in quickly when the chance comes. Chu Yun tore his eyes away and turned to Lu Qingxue. Restore your vital energy here. I will go ahead and scout the situation. Though worried for him, Lu Qingxue thought clearly. Chu Yun's current power meant few of the sword mound's flying swords could catch him. She herself had just survived a brutal battle. The Ice Soul Jade Bone art had drained her greatly. To follow would only slow him down. Her top priority was replenishing her vitality. She nodded, retrieved a tube of vital energy gel from her storage ring, drank it, and sat cross-legged to cultivate. Chu Yun walked toward the sword mound's entrance. Another person approaches, someone in the crowd murmured. A dozen pairs of eyes swung toward him. That is Chu Yun, the martial arts exam top scorer from Jiangxing. Where is Lu Qingxue? Is he planning to go into the sword mound alone? Ignoring all whispers, Chu Yun marched straight for the valley's opening. In an instant, the swords embedded in the cliffs began to tremble. The nearest ones hummed softly, a warning tone. Then the distant blades answered. The sound rippled outward, swelling in volume until the whole valley shook. Sand and gravel hopped across the ground. Swish, swish, swish. 3 iron swords burst free of the earth, hanging suspended in mid-air with points aimed directly at Chu Yun, their blades quivering. Good grief. They really can sniff out vital energy. If you crave vital energy so badly, it is time for the Azure Nether Jade Talisman to do its work. Chu Yun focused his mind and activated the Azure Nether Jade Talisman. His displayed vital energy plummeted. 1005, 100, 10, 1, 0. Current vital energy. 0 true value. 1005 facing the 3 levitating swords. Chu Yun stepped into the sword mound. Silence. The 3 flying blades vibrated once, then lost track of their target. With sharp whistles, they flew back and embedded themselves within the rock wall. Chu Yun moved unimpeded among thousands upon thousands of swords. Not a single blade stirred to attack him. Those weapons normally so sensitive to vital energy fluctuations did not react at all as he passed. He strolled through the valley with hands tucked in his sleeves, as if touring a scenic park. What in the world? Why are the swords ignoring him? Someone from the onlookers shouted in shock. Is his cultivation so low he does not draw their notice? Nonsense. He is a grand martial master. He sent Wang Zikai flying with one punch. His power cannot be trivial. Then how? Lu Qingxue opened her eyes and watched from afar. A faint smile tugged at her lips before her expression turned cool once more. That fellow. He truly keeps trump cards hidden away. Paying no mind to the commotion behind him, Chu Yun pressed deeper. Skeletal remains littered the ground all around. After walking about 500 meters, a piece of metallic wreckage lay among the gravel, a severed mech arm. Faint blue energy circuits flickered across its surface, like a life signal on the verge of fading. It was Li Jun's Obsidian 3 mech. Chu Yun had seen this machine carry Li Jun across the river, and had felt envy at the sight. He scanned the surroundings. Apart from this broken arm, no other fragments of the mech remained. The Obsidian 3 was surprisingly durable. Chu Yun kept advancing. At the valley's far end, narrow stone steps wound upward toward higher ground. The number of swords thinned along these steps, yet every single one bore far denser sword intent than those outside. Chu Yun reached out and brushed a bronze ancient sword beside him. Nothing happened. He raised an eyebrow, pulled his hand back, and quickened his pace. 300 steps onward, the view opened wide. A circular platform stretched roughly 50 meters across. No mountain walls surrounded it. Only endless pale, celestial light poured down from above. At the platform's center, a pale golden barrier hung like an upturned bowl, shielding an area within. Hundreds of flying swords swirled in the air, striking furiously against the shield like an angry swarm of hornets. Behind the barrier, a black-robed woman wove complex hand seals. Runes streamed from her fingertips and merged into the defensive dome. Behind her, Zhao Yueli sat cross-legged, eyes shut, breathing steadily. Fine beads of sweat dotted her already pale cheeks. A plain stone sword hovered suspended right before her. The black-robed woman possessed sharp perception. The moment Chu Yun stepped onto the platform, she sensed his presence. Her gaze pierced through the mass of sword shadows and locked onto him. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Where were the flying swords? Had they all been defeated? No. Even if the outer swords were cleared, the 36 Heavenly Gang sword formation along the steps should destroy any intruder. Yet Chu Yun stood at the platform's edge untouched, no sword assailing him. Impossible. Unless he possessed no vital energy at all. The absurd thought crossed her mind, only to be dismissed immediately. A grand martial master with vitality above 1,000 could not be drained of life force. He must be wielding some supreme concealment art that fooled the sword mount's restrictions. But even her young lady could barely pull off such a feat. How could a youth from Jiangxing manage it? Before she could puzzle over it further, more flying swords assailed her. She refocused all her effort on maintaining the defense. Need a hand. Chu Yun gestured toward the storm of swords. Suspicion clouded the black-robed woman's gaze. What have you done to your vital energy? A secret, Chu Yun answered. His eyes drifted to Zhao Yueli. What is she doing? The woman's sealing hands tightened. She could not tell whether Chu Yun was foe or ally. Though her young lady had met him within the secret realm, alliances meant little here, where people might draw blades over opportunities. Yet she was nearing her limit. Sustaining the defensive formation drained immense power. Worse, Zhao Yueli had spent far longer comprehending the Sword of Thunder might than the planned 1-hour limit. She showed no sign of waking, and her complexion grew worse by the minute. Within an hour, the flying swords would break through. Both mistress and servant would perish here. Reluctantly, she relented. Young Miss is comprehending the Tao of the sword. Seeing her desperate state, Chu Yun spoke plainly. You are barely holding this barrier together, and she still devotes herself to insight. I must say, Zhao Yueli has remarkable composure. The black-robed woman frowned. Young Miss is an innate sword physique. She began cultivating the sword in childhood. At 12, her sword heart attained clarity. At 16, she grasped sword intent. Her understanding of sword mysteries is beyond the comprehension of ordinary folk. Innate sword physique. Another special constitution. These scions of great clans all possessed some extraordinary physique or talent. Wang Zikai was a thought artist. Lu Qingxue wielded the ice-souled divine physique. Zhao Yueli bore the innate sword physique. Was he the only ordinary one? Fortunately, he had his system. Chu Yun refocused his attention on the hovering stone sword. Very well, your young lady is extraordinary. What is this sword? While still weaving seals, the woman replied. You offered help. Aid my young lady, and I shall tell you. I only spoke casually. You need not take it seriously. Chu Yun walked up to the edge of the barrier. With a casual wave of his right hand, a wisp of crimson true fire lashed out and deflected several flying swords that had nearly slipped through. Watching Chu Yun move about unharmed, the woman gritted her teeth and blurted out. It is the Sword of Thunder Might. The Sword of Thunder Might. Chu Yun froze. Wang Zikai had mentioned it right before dying. He had imagined it crackling with lightning power, yet it looked like nothing more than an unremarkable chunk of stone. It looks no different from ordinary rock. The woman hurried to correct him. Its ordinariness is what makes it extraordinary. The Sword of Thunder Might can shift forms freely. Only an innate sword physique may perceive its true appearance. What makes it so special? Chu Yun asked. Both the Zhao and Wang clans fought over this artifact. It had to hold great value. It assists one in comprehending the Tao of the sword, she replied concisely. Chu Yun frowned. He knew nothing of swords. To be precise, he knew no weapon arts whatsoever. He had no proper weapon of his own. He fought solely with fists and willpower, using 8 extremes fist and true fire art. Now that he thought about it, he truly needed a suitable weapon. He could not keep fighting bare-handed against bladed foes forever. If he could gain insight into a sword technique through the Sword of Thunder Might, how does one comprehend it, touch it, or reach it with divine sense? Earn its acknowledgement, and your insight into the sword shall advance by leaps and bounds. The black-robed woman glanced toward him. Young Miss has already made contact. She sank into deep comprehension, which explains why she has not woken. That's simple. That's simple. Chu Yun fell silent for a moment, looking over Zhao Yueli. What exactly do you want me to do for her? Truthfully, I am not entirely certain. The woman hesitated. Young Miss said comprehending the sword would take at most an hour. It has been an hour and a half, and she still stirs not. I fear something has gone wrong. So I hope you can comprehend the Tao of the sword and wake her. Chu Yun frowned. Does this so-called comprehension trap one within some kind of illusion? He hated illusions. The bronze prison vision from the prison, suppressing contemplation art, had nearly shattered his spirit. The agony of tempering the samadhi true fire had been excruciating. Though his mental power was strong, he was far from omnipotent inside external domains. It is not an illusion. The woman rushed to explain, speaking faster. I touched the Sword of Thunder Might briefly myself. Only 10 minutes passed out here, yet within that space, I experienced 10 full years of cultivating the sword. I speak the truth. Chu Yun's heart skipped a beat. 10 minutes of real time for 10 years of cultivation. This was a path to rapid advancement. What did you say? Inside the Sword of Thunder Might, I comprehended 10 years of sword arts, while merely 10 minutes elapsed in reality. She repeated word by word. Are you tricking me? Chu Yun narrowed his eyes, studying her facial expressions for deceit. At a moment like this, do you think I would waste time jesting? She let out a bitter laugh. Refuse to help if you wish. There is no need for such pretense. Her goad struck home. Lower the defensive barrier, Chu Yun ordered. The woman altered her hand seals. A crack split the golden light dome. Outside, flying swords swarmed toward the opening, points aimed at the gap. Chu Yin paid them no heed and stepped through. The barrier resealed behind him, shutting out the raging swords, which buzzed in frustrated fury. "My name is Dong Qingqing," the black-robed woman said as she re-established her seals. Sweat streamed down her forehead. "I am young Mrs. Personal Bodyguard. If you succeed in waking her, the Zhao clan shall owe you a debt of gratitude." Chu Yin nodded and turned to Zhao Yueli. Her delicate features were tight with strain. Her lips pressed thin, and faint veins pulsed at her temples, as if she endured immense pressure. He drew a deep breath and sat cross-legged. From the mud palace within his forehead, he sent forth a strand of spiritual sense and touched the sword of thunder might. In the next instant, his consciousness was violently pulled away. The sword mound vanished. Dong Qingqing vanished. Chu Yin found himself standing inside an endless white void. The ground was white, the sky was white. No reference points marked distance or direction. Only swords existed. Countless swords. Some planted into the ground, some floating mid-air, others hanging upside down in emptiness. Their forms varied wildly. Ancient bronze blades, modern spirit, alloy swords, slender 3-foot rapiers, giant heavy greatswords, curved serpentine blades. Each radiated a distinct aura. Chu Yin strode toward the center of this white space. There rose a colossal sword piercing all the way to the heights of the void. Further ahead, he spotted a figure. Zhao Yueli. She sat cross-legged on empty space. Dozens of sword phantoms circled slowly around her. Chu Yin drew near. Her complexion looked healthy, with no trace of suffering. "Zhao Yueli," he called. No response. "Young Miss Zhao," still no reaction. Frowning, he knelt before her and waved a hand in front of her eyes. Her eyeballs shifted slightly, yet they remained unfocused. She could not perceive him. Her consciousness was fully submerged within the domain of sword insight. Chu Yin stood and looked onward toward the towering great sword at the heart of the realm. Beneath the giant sword stood an old man with his hands clasped behind his back. The elder wore an off-white robe. His hair was gray, his cheekbones slightly prominent, and his eye sockets sunken. His eyes blazed like two burning embers, strikingly vivid against his haggard features. The elder's gaze settled on him. "How did you make it all the way here?" "I walked," Chu Yin answered truthfully. "You possess no innate talent for the sword, no lingering sword intent, no accumulated insight into the way of the sword. You are a complete sword fool. Someone like you should have been pierced by 10,000 swords, driven mad, and reduced to a sword thrall upon reaching this place. Yet you are unharmed." The elder's eyes fixed on Chu Yin, a faint, scarcely perceptible flicker crossing his gaze. "How did you manage it?" "I have no idea." Chu Yin shrugged. "Maybe I am a blank slate for the sword." It was the plain truth. He did not even know what sword intent was, let alone be bewitched by it. It was like an illiterate walking into a vast library. No matter how many books there were, he could not understand them, so they could not drive him insane with their contents. He had entered merely because Dong Qingqing had said, 10 minutes here equals 10 years outside. Perhaps that was the key. Having come with no devotion to the sword, he could not be trapped by it. The old man stared at him for a long while, his gaze sharp as one sizing up prey. Chu Yin met his eyes steadily, not flinching in the slightest. In the end, the elder looked away first. A true blank slate for the sword. He paused, and his hands behind his back stirred slightly. "In my long years here, I have seen countless prodigies and peerless talents. 7 born with innate sword physiques. 13 with enlightened sword hearts. 20, one who awakened sword intent spontaneously. But a blank slate for the sword such as yourself, standing before me with an unwavering countenance. You are the first." Chu Yin said, "Since I am this exceptional, do I get some reward, senior?" The elder fell silent. After thousands of years of life, he had never met anyone so brazen. "I am but a wisp of remnant soul. What reward could I possibly bestow? A sword warden? In a sense. Where is this place?" The sword, intent domain, a self-contained sword cultivation realm housed within the thunder balancer sword. Chu Yin nodded and pressed on. "Does time flow differently here?" That was what he truly wanted to know. "Perhaps. I can hardly tell." The elder's voice drifted faintly. "Having lived so long, I have grown indifferent to time. I can no longer tell swift from slow. It might be 1,000 years. It might be 3 years. It might be but a fleeting instant. Time holds no meaning within these bounds." "Hardly know?" Chu Yin sneered inwardly. This old fraud was putting on an act. No one in this place had lived longer than him. He knew full well what was going on, yet feigned profound mystery. He was definitely up to no good. Mentally labeling the elder a schemer, Chu Yun asked again, "Then how do I get out?" "Two ways." The elder held up one finger. "First, sever this giant sword. Second, kill me." Chu Yun's eyes darted back and forth between the colossal blade and the old man. Sever this sword? It stretched from the ground deep into the void, its tip vanishing beyond sight. How on earth could he cut through it? As for slaying the old man, he would not mind trying. A remnant soul had its limits, after all. What level of cultivation did you possess in life, senior? The elder had not expected this question. He blinked, then replied casually, "I was a martial venerable in my prime." "And now?" Chu Yun asked. The elder laughed. "So you truly intend to kill me?" "You jest, senior. I merely wish to leave this place." Chu Yun spread his hands. "I cannot even wield a sword. Severing that giant blade is nothing but a fool's dream. Therefore, I must pursue what is practical." The elder was dumbfounded. This youth refused to follow the expected script. Everyone else devoted themselves to cultivating sword arts, striving to cleave the giant sword. This one immediately set his sights on killing him. He did not even bother with pretense. "You have not even struck at it. How can you be certain you cannot cut it?" Chu Yun picked up a random longsword, his gaze turning cold as he looked toward the elder. Some outcomes reveal themselves only in action. Others are plain to see without attempting them. The elder's heart tightened. He had clearly grasped Chu Yun's meaning. The boy was done talking. He meant to fight. Even as a remnant soul, he had once been a martial venerable. To be treated with such disrespect was unthinkable. "Hold your temper. I can teach you a sword art. Master it, and you may yet have a chance to sever the giant sword." Chu Yun raised an eyebrow. "What sword art? I will not waste my time on garbage. I would never deign to teach worthless sword techniques," the elder huffed. Two withered fingers joined like a blade, tracing casually through the air. A silvery sword mark condensed in mid-air and lingered. Countless characters and patterns flowed forth within that mark like liquid mercury, spreading across the wide expanse to form a complete sword scripture. "This is Tai's spectral, slicing sword, a heaven, grade top, tier art I chanced upon while traveling the northern wastes in my youth." The elder expounded beside him. "Tai's spectral, slicing sword centers on light, splitting. One sword becomes 100, 100 become 1,000. The more sword beams you divide forth, the greater your power. At full mastery, one strike can unleash 10,000 swords, blotting out sky and sun." He paused and looked at Chu Yun. "Attempt to channel its power first. Do not overreach. Successfully manifesting 3 separate sword beams will count as success." Chu Yun poured all his mental energy into the scripture, reading every word and studying every illustration. Moments later, following the art's circulation methods, he stirred the vital blood within his body and swept his long sword through the air. Swish, swish, swish. 3 streaks of silver burst from the blade, leaving long trailing tails in the air and striking a floating sword 100 meters away with pinpoint accuracy. Clang, clang, clang. 3 clear rings rang out, and the sword was sent flying backward. 3 beams. Is that passable? Chu Yun turned toward the elder. The old man gaped, his Adam's apple bobbing, unable to speak for a long time. "Let me try again and see if I can produce more," Chu Yun said, lifting his hand once more. Recovering his wits, the elder waved him off. "Wait a moment. Tell me, have you secretly practiced this before?" "No," Chu Yun shook his head. First time. First time." The elder's voice rose slightly. "You could split 3 sword beams on your very first attempt at Tai's spectral, slicing sword? Do you know that the sword emperor who created this art only managed 3 beams on his first try?" Chu Yun pondered for a moment. "Perhaps I am a genius?" The elder fell silent. What the elder did not know was that during those few minutes of explanation, bolstered by the power of Ascension Stairway, Chu Yun had spent a full 10 years cultivating within a microcosmic realm of time. 10 long years. More than enough time for him to engrave every principle of this heaven, grade top, tier sword art deep into his bones. The elder asked no further questions and proceeded to expound deeper sword philosophy. Chu Yun listened and kept practicing. At first, there were many points he did not fully comprehend. Why is the spectral splitting no different for this strike? Why does my vital blood suddenly cut off when I try to divide 7 sword beams? Is there a proportional relationship between the refinement of sword intent and the number of divided beams? The elder answered each query. At the same time, doubt gnawed at him. Though this youth had barely held a sword before, his questions cut straight to the art's core. Once an idea was explained, he could draw inferences and apply them instantly in practice. He surpassed those born with innate sword physiques, without possessing one himself. By the 10th repetition, the elder had no more riddles to resolve. Chu Yun had broken through every bottleneck of Tai's spectral, slicing sword. Standing where he was, he drew his sword and swept it lightly. Swish, 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 swish. More than 1,000 silver sword beams poured from the blade, cascading like a Milky Way and shooting out in every direction. Clang, 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 clang. Every floating sword within a 500-meter radius was sent flying in an instant, sword chimes resounding throughout the white domain. The elder's pupils constricted sharply. He spun to stare at Chu Yun, and calm depths of his eyes were overtaken by genuine shock for the very first time. Are you certain that was truly only your 10th practice run? Chu Yun lowered his sword, his breathing steady and his complexion unchanged. Yes. Why? The elder remained quiet for a very long time. His gaze lingered on Chu Yun's face for a full 10 seconds as he reassessed the young man before him. To unleash 1,000 separate beams with Tai's spectral, slicing sword is to attain complete mastery. His voice turned low. Do you know how long ordinary sword cultivators require to go from initiation to full mastery? Chu Yun guessed. 10 years. 100 years. Exceptionally gifted practitioners take 30. Those with innate sword physiques take 10. The elder fixed Chu Yun with his eyes. And you achieved it in less than half a day? What kind of monstrous talent was this? Those born with innate sword physiques were not fit to polish his shoes. Memories of bygone sword prodigies stirred in his mind. Some spent their whole lives mastering this art, yet could only summon 800 beams and called themselves grandmasters. In the end, the thunder balancer sword eroded their sanity and left them as dry bones. This youth, however, had crossed heights countless generations could never reach in merely 10 repetitions. It was like plundering power, a trampling upon all sword-related principles of this world. Complex emotions swirled within the elder: jealousy, bewilderment, and even fear of a being he could not comprehend. Naturally, Chu Yun told him nothing of the nearly 300 years he had spent cultivating under Ascension Stairway. Having reached full mastery of a heaven-grade top-tier sword art, it was time to test its true power. He raised his right hand. The vital, blood crystal core in his dantian spun furiously, surging power racing through his meridians to his fingertips. Tai spectral, slicing sword, 10,000, sword convergence. Thousands of silver beams gathered above Chu Yun's head, merging into a 100-meter-long giant silver greatsword. Strike! The colossal silver blade crashed down hard against the giant sword of the domain. Boom! An earth-shattering roar echoed out. The silver greatsword shattered into scattered radiance, yet the giant sword stood utterly unmarred, not a single scratch marking its surface. Chu Yun glanced toward the elder. His look spoke volumes. This sword art of yours is not all that impressive. Reading his unspoken thought, the elder said, if full mastery were enough to sever the thunder balancer sword, you would not have seen so many lost souls along your path here. Among those lost ones were geniuses who had attained complete mastery over one or even multiple heaven-grade sword arts. Your talent is extraordinary, yet this is still far from sufficient. Chu Yun's brows drew together. Are there realms beyond full mastery for sword techniques? He cared more about the progression of martial power than about the sword's name. The elder nodded gravely. Sword arts themselves have no further tiers, but martial true intent does. He stretched one finger and traced 2 characters in the air. Subtlety. Subtlety means absolute mastery over your own power. Every move is precise, no force wasted or spilled. Every shred of strength lands upon the cutting edge. His finger moved again, writing 2 more words. Clarity. Clarity means supreme perception of the outer world. The stir of wind in grass, an enemy's breath, all lie open to you. Before your foe even moves, you already know where they will strike. Unity with heaven and earth. Unity with heaven and earth. You resonate with the world itself. When you strike, heaven and earth answer, lending you their might. The elder's finger paused, then inscribed 2 final characters. True intent. True intent sounds simple, yet comprehending it is harder than scaling the heavens. It is no mere skill or brute force. It is the embryonic form of a Tao. Only when you grasp true intent do you truly step into the halls of martial power. Chu Yun pressed further. What lies beyond true intent? Beyond? You have not even touched the threshold of subtlety. The elder saw how earnestly Chu Yun listened and fell quiet for a moment. After true intent come principles, origins, comprehending Tao, merging with Tao, and commanding Tao. Martial true intent spans 9 stages, each a world apart. You have a long road ahead. Keep training. Perhaps when you reach unity with heaven and earth, you will stand a chance of severing the thunder, balancer sword. Chu Yun processed this flood of knowledge, inwardly astounded. He had once believed perfect mastery of combat arts was the end of the path. It turned out it was merely the starting line. The martial road stretched far longer than he had imagined. That filled him with delight. Drawing a deep breath, he tightened his grip on his long sword. Ascension Stairway, activate. Chu Yun practiced Tai Spectral, slicing sword again and again. Time blurred. Decades might have passed. Or centuries. At long last, he grasped the sensation of subtlety. It was not further refinement of sword forms, but insight into his own being. He could feel the rhythm of each breath, the flow of every wisp of vital blood, the exact angle of every sword swing. He began adjusting himself. Breath, heartbeat, vital blood, sword technique. He aligned everything into perfect harmony. Then he thrust. The blade sliced through the air, stirring faint ripples within the white domain. He had attained the realm of subtlety. More time slipped by. Chu Yun's sword, style shifted. No longer a forced adjustment, it became instinctive harmony. The sword felt like an extension of his own body. Where his mind reached, the sword followed, without the slightest lag. Sword, heart clarity. Sword moves as thought directs. He had attained the realm of clarity. More ages drifted onward. Chu Yun felt as if he had ceased to exist. He stood within the white space, yet the world barely registered his presence. The undulations of his vital blood synchronized completely with the ambient spiritual energy, no power leaking outward. Unity with heaven and earth. Achieved. Still, Chu Yun did not stop. He sensed that unity with heaven and earth was not enough. He still had not touched the true intent belonging to the thunder, balancer sword. He needed to grow stronger still. He kept cultivating. This time, however, he set the sword aside. He merely sat. Like a boulder. Like a tree. Like a gust of wind. Like a sword. Time lost all meaning. He could not tell how long he remained seated. Perhaps 1,000 years. Perhaps 10,000. One day he awoke. His consciousness touched something. It was the very essence of the sword. The primal source of every sword that had ever existed in this world. That will was vast, boundless, ancient, eternal. It observed no trivial rules and cared nothing for mortal glory or suffering. It simply was, existing in its purest form. The instant Chu Yun's awareness made contact with it, a torrent of information crashed into his mind. Sword true intent. Countless manifestations of sword truth flooded his sea of consciousness like breached floodwaters. Sharp, edged, heavy, weighted, swift, devious, domineering, supple, ferocious, soft, yielding. Innumerable strands of sword intent collided, intertwined, fused, divided, cycling endlessly within his spirit. Chu Yun's consciousness teetered on the brink of being overwhelmed. Yet his spiritual fire burned bright, and the prison, suppressing runes spun in defense. He endured the onslaught. At last the raging tide subsided. Chu Yun opened his eyes. Streaks of sword, light swirled within his pupils. In a single glance, he perceived the true intent of the thunder, balancer sword. He also saw straight through the elder's deception. He rose slowly. The sky, piercing thunder, balancer sword began to tremble. The tremors started faint, then grew wilder and more violent. Runes carved across its surface blazed to life, their radiance merging to illuminate the entire white domain. Boom! The giant sword tore free from the ground. The firmament of this realm cracked open, and the land crumbled away. The great sword circled once above Chu Yun's head, then shrank rapidly. 1,000 meters, 100 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. In the end, it transformed into a slender silvery longsword that settled neatly into Chu Yun's palm. Its blade was razor, thin, and two archaic script characters were etched along its spine. Thunder, balancer. Chu Yun curled his fingers firmly around the hilt. Sword intent surged out from the blade, racing up his arm, coursing through his meridians, and pouring into his Dantian sea of energy. Chu Yun drew in a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He lifted his gaze toward the elder, a faint, gentle smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, warm as winter sunlight. Their eyes locked. The elder's pupils shrank to pinpricks as he stared at the thunder, balancer sword, which should have remained sealed in place forever. "You have subdued the thunder, balancer sword?" he cried out in shock. "What do you intend to do?" Chu Yun lifted the sword, its tip aimed straight at the elder. "The answer is obvious. Now that I have claimed the thunder, balancer sword, I would hate to destroy it. So that leaves only you to deal with." The elder froze for a heartbeat, then threw back his head and laughed wildly, his maniacal echoes reverberating through the domain. Ha ha! Whatever unearthly trick you use to subdue this blade, do you truly believe wielding it grants you the power to slay me? Do you know who I am? Who drove this sword into the earth? Who built this sword burial ground? Chu Yun's expression stayed impassive. I know. I have beheld the true intent of the Thunder Balancer sword. You are no mere remnant soul, nor are you the sword, Warden. The Thunder Balancer sword is the seal that binds you. This so-called enlightenment of the sword path is nothing but your method of selecting suitable mortal vessels. Every soul that draws near the Thunder Balancer sword gets their consciousness dragged into this domain. Those who become lost amid sword cultivation have their spirits devoured by you, feeding the power that keeps you alive. If they are strong enough to stand before you, you will teach them swordsmanship, train them, and make them even stronger. For only those with sufficient strength can sever the Tingjun sword. And once the Tingjun sword is cut apart, the seal will break. Then you may seize the chance to be reborn and take over another's body. Chu Yun spoke slowly, uttering everything he had seen within the true meaning of the Tingjun sword, word by word. It turned out this old man was a wisp of obsession left behind by Lord Kanglin Water. At first, this wisp of obsession only guided later generations in comprehending the sword Tao. As time passed, it gradually developed thoughts of its own. Unwilling to merely serve as a guide, it longed to escape this place and gain full control over the Tingjun sword. It had waited here for tens of millions of years, biding its time for the arrival of someone capable of cutting the sword, so it could seize a body and live anew. How do you know this? Have you attained the true meaning realm? So you have chosen to kill me. The old man's voice turned calm, even tinged with a note of admiration. Ruthless, resolute, and clear-headed. To be honest, you are the most satisfactory seed I have encountered in tens of millions of years. He paused, a strange smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Still the same question, can you kill me? Chu Yun said nothing. He raised the Tingjun sword and struck out. The sword light unfurled like a long silk ribbon, slashing straight toward the old man's face. The old man did not dodge. The sword light passed right through his body as if cutting through a wisp of mist. The old man's form was split in two, only to reassemble the very next second. He glanced down at his wound and laughed. Swordsmanship of the true meaning realm is indeed powerful. It can barely injure my soul form, but that is as far as it goes. My soul form is bound to this space. So long as the space endures, I cannot die. Can you destroy this space? Chu Yun remained silent. Another sword strike landed. The old man was shattered, then reformed. Third sword, fourth sword, fifth sword. Chu Yun swung his blade without cease, sword light pouring down like a torrential downpour. The old man was shattered and reformed over and over again. Each time he reassembled, his soul form grew faintly paler, yet it swiftly recovered. Give it up, the old man's voice echoed through the deluge of sword light, laced with mockery. You cannot harm me. Either you are trapped here alongside me, or you leave this place with me. I believe you know better than I which choice to make. Chu Yun laughed. Leave with you and become your sword thrall. Don't even dream of it. He kept swinging his sword. 60th sword, 70th sword, 80th sword, 90th sword, 99th sword. Sizzle, an unusual sound rang out inside the white space. The edge of the Tingjun sword chopped into a mass of mist. But this time, the mist did not disperse. Instead, a shower of sparks flew outward. The old man's smile froze on his face. Chu Yun glanced down at the Tingjun sword, then at the drifting sparks hanging in mid-air. His pupils brightened slightly. It works. The old man stared at his wound, his eyes filled with horror. Marital, thought unity? No, that cannot be. The martial path and the thought path are two entirely separate paths of cultivation. Throughout history, scarcely 1 in 10 million has been able to advance far along both. How old are you? How could you possibly? Chu Yun lifted the Tingjun sword once more. This time, a thin layer of purple flame clung to its blade. Samadhi true fire. How will you block this strike? Chu Yun brought the sword crashing down. Purple flames danced along the blade, blooming like a peach blossom in full flower. The edge sliced through the old man's soul form. This time, the mist did not drift apart. The old man looked down at his chest. There, a wisp of purple flame burned quietly. The flame gave off no physical heat, yet it filled him with a fear deeper than death itself. Samadhi true fire? The old man's voice trembled. What sort of monster are you? How do you wield Samadhi true fire? Chu Yun watched in silence as the purple flame burned the old man's remnant soul away bit by bit. The old man thrashed wildly, trying to smother the flames. But Samadhi true fire existed to burn souls. Remnant souls, or complete spirits alike, made fine fuel for it. No, no. The old man's voice grew weaker and weaker, his figure fading away. I have been trapped for 12,000 years. I finally waited. For someone who could reach this place. Unbearable. I cannot bear this. His voice dissolved into thin air. Tens of thousands of years of schemes and waiting were reduced to nothing in that instant. The white space began to shake violently. Chu Yun sighed. What a pity. He felt no sorrow for the old man's death. What he regretted was losing this precious cultivation ground. Time flowed more slowly here. One could receive enlightenment of the sword Tao's true meaning, and there was even a free sparring partner to exchange blows with him. Such a fine place was being destroyed. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ground, the ceiling crumbled, and the countless swords hanging in the air fell one after another, clattering and shattering upon the ground. Chu Yun stayed calm as an invisible force pushed him outward. It felt just like being dragged back to the surface after drowning. The real world, the high platform of the sword mount. Inside the defensive light barrier, Dong Qingqing's arms shook, and she could barely maintain her hand seals. The golden barrier was covered in cracks, like glass hammered repeatedly, on the verge of shattering at any moment. Outside the barrier, hundreds of flying swords crashed down like a storm, each impact sending golden ripples rippling across its surface. Blood trickled from the corners of Dong Qingqing's mouth. Her physical vitality had been pushed to its absolute limit. Gritting her teeth, she forced another surge of vitality into the formation. Miss, please wake up. Just then, the Tingjun's sword shuddered violently. Its stony outer shell shattered piece by piece, revealing the silvery, white blade beneath. Silver patterns flowed across its surface, glinting cold under the pale cyan sky light. An invisible surge of sword intent erupted from the blade, sweeping across the entire high platform like a gale. Has the Tingjun sword acknowledged its master? Dong Qingqing's pupils shrank abruptly, and then she witnessed something even more unbelievable. Chu Yun's eyes flew open, his consciousness returning to his physical body from within the sword, intent space. As if sensing its master's awakening, the Tingjun sword let out a clear, ringing hum. It soared up from before Zhao Yueli, tracing a silvery arc through the air, and settled firmly into Chu Yun's palm. Dong Qingqing stood dumbfounded. Her mouth hung open, her mind went completely blank. It was not the young lady who had subdued the Tingjun sword. How could it be him? Even as these thoughts raced through her head, Zhao Yueli woke. The moment her eyes opened, she lurched forward, propping one hand against the ground, gasping heavily. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead and along the bridge of her nose. Her gaze remained unfocused for several seconds before clearing. She looked down at her own empty hands. Where had the Tingjun sword been? The one she had spent so long comprehending within the sword, intent space. Miss, you are awake at last. Dong Qingqing nearly cried. I truly thought you would. Zhao Yueli seemed not to hear her. She glanced about herself in frantic haste. Then she spotted Chu Yun. She caught the faint glimmer of sword light lingering deep within his pupils, and she saw the silvery sword resting in his grasp. The Tingjun sword. Zhao Yueli's lips parted, yet no sound came forth. A sharp snap cut through her thoughts. A fine fissure appeared across the pale golden light barrier. The cracks spread swiftly, spiderwebbing across the entire surface of the shield. Not good. The formation is breaking. Dong Qingqing's face paled. The runes beneath her fingertips were fading. She poured every ounce of her strength into trying to mend the fractures. Crack, crack, crack. The sounds of splintering merged into one continuous roar. Boom. The light barrier exploded into fragments. Freed from restraint, thousands upon thousands of flying swords surged down toward the three figures at the center of the platform like bursting floodwaters. Blades sliced through the air, rending it apart, scattering even the light itself. Dong Qingqing threw herself toward Zhao Yueli on instinct, ready to shield her with her own body. Having only just regained consciousness, Zhao Yueli had yet to fully restore her vitality. She reacted half a beat too late, summoning only a thin layer of sword intent in her palm. Against the deluge of flying swords, that layer of intent was as fragile as a sheet of paper. The next instant, Chu Yun held two fingers together like a blade and uttered one word. Halt. Time seemed to freeze over the high platform. Every single flying sword stopped dead in mid-air, not moving so much as a hair's breadth. One sword hung less than an inch away from Dong Qingqing's back. It could advance no further, as though an invisible hand had closed its grip upon this stretch of space. Dong Qingqing remained frozen in her lunging posture. Her pupils dilated as her gaze swept over the blades hovering inches away, finally settling upon Chu Yun. The young man stood where he was, fingers shaped in a seal, his expression composed. What realm is this? Dong Qingqing's throat went dry. Zhao Yueli said nothing. Blessed with a heavenly sword physique, she understood far better than Dong Qingqing exactly what had just taken place. This had not been mental power control. Chu Yun had used the true meaning of the sword Dao to command every flying sword. He had made them choose to stop their attack of their own accord. Like hundreds of rivers flowing to the sea, 10,000 swords paying homage to their source. Only those who had reached an ultimate height within the sword Dao could accomplish such a feat. She had trained in the sword for 18 years. Possessing a heavenly sword physique and an enlightened sword heart, she had long considered herself among the finest of her generation. Yet this youth had known virtually no swordsmanship before entering the secret realm. How had he become so powerful in so short a time? Shock could no longer describe what Zhao Yueli was feeling. The sword heart she had nurtured for years felt as though it was crumbling apart right then. Earlier, within the sword, intense space, she had brushed against a profound sword, true meaning far above her own realm, and had nearly been swallowed by that vast will. At the critical moment, that will had suddenly vanished, shattered by some greater force. After that, she had woken up. Now she understood why. Chu Yun waved a hand casually. Go. The suspended flying swords responded like soldiers receiving orders. They all turned around, pointing their tips outward, and flew back toward the mountain walls along the paths they had come. Clink, 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 clink. The sound of blades burying themselves in rock rang out without pause. In barely 3 seconds, peace returned to the high platform. Dong Qingqing's legs gave way, and she slumped to the ground. She stared up at Chu Yun, her eyes wide. Lu Qingxue had waited at the entrance to the sword mound for half an hour, anxiety growing within her like wild weeds. Suddenly, a towering sword intent shot skyward. Right after that, a clear sword cry echoed out from the sword mound. Violent shockwaves rippled outward from the mound's center. Even across many mountain ridges, the sharp sword chi stung Lu Qingxue's cheeks. That pressure, the sword mound is stirring. Has a peerless divine weapon been born, or have ancient restrictions collapsed? Could the young lady and her servant from the Zhao clan obtained an ancient legacy? Let's go in and see. The martial artists gathered at the entrance could hold back no longer and rushed into the sword mound. Lu Qingxue's heart pounded. Her very first thought, what on earth had Chu Yun gotten up to this time? Her figure blurred into a stream of light as she charged into the mound. Upon the high platform, 10,000 swords had fallen silent. These flying swords will not attack us for the time being. At Chu Yun's thought, the Tingjun sword in his hand shrank abruptly into a silver streak of light that coiled like a serpent around his wrist. He turned toward Zhao Yueli and her servant. Are you two all right? The pair snapped out of their daze. They nodded instinctively, then shook their heads. Chu Yun looked at Dong Qingqing. How long was I comprehending? Less than 10 minutes, 9.5 minutes. Dong Qingqing glanced down at her mechanical wristwatch before rising quickly to help support Zhao Yueli. 9.5 minutes. Chu Yun nodded slightly. He still had not worked out exactly how time flowed within the sword, intense space. But none of that mattered now. What counted was that he had reaped far more than he had bargained for. All those long years he had experienced inside that space had become instinct etched into every movement of his sword hand. Every strike he unleashed bore the weight of millions of refinements. That was enough. Qingqing, what exactly happened while I was comprehending the Tingjun sword? Zhao Yueli found her voice at last. Dong Qingqing dared not hide a single detail. She told her everything from Chu Yun climbing the high platform and stepping through the defensive formation, to him touching the Tingjun sword and falling into comprehension. The sword acknowledging its new master, Chu Yun awakening, and the 10,000 swords submitting to his will. She recounted every incident in meticulous detail, as though each moment was burned into her memory. When she finished speaking, Zhao Yueli fell into a long silence. Chu Yun. She did not use her casual form of address. Chu Yun lifted his eyes. This is a direct line token of the Zhao clan. Whoever holds it may ask one favor of our clan. Zhao Yueli drew a C-shaped jade pendant from her robes, carved with the relief of a soaring dragon. So long as it does not violate our clan's ancient precepts or harm our fundamental interests, the Zhao clan will spare no effort to grant it. Chu Yun took the jade token and weighed it lightly in his palm. Such a precious item. Are you not afraid I will make a demand that bankrupts your clan? Gratitude for a great kindness needs no flowery words. Zhao Yueli met his gaze unflinchingly, her resolve plain. Without you, Qingqing and I would never have left this place alive. One jade token in exchange for 2 lives means I am the one gaining the better end of the bargain. Chu Yin did not stand on ceremony. Rest assured, I will likely call upon this favor before long. Zhao Yueli blinked, on the verge of asking, when, yet in the end she held her tongue. Footsteps sounded on the stone steps, just then. Lu Qingxue appeared at the edge of the high platform. Her breath came slightly quick, wisps of icy mist swirling about her body. She had clearly rushed here at full power, activating the ice, soul jade, bone art. Her eyes fell first on Chu Yun. She looked him up and down. Only after confirming he bore no injuries did the tension leave her shoulders. The next instant, her gaze shifted to Zhao Yueli, then locked onto the dragon-shaped jade pendant not yet fully concealed on Chu Yun's person. Her eyes returned to Zhao Yueli, whose lips wore a faint, knowing smile. A barely perceptible ripple stirred beneath Lu Qingxue's cold, clear eyes. Her facial features remained unchanged, as frigid as ever. Yet Chu Yun noticed the knuckles of her sword, gripping right hand whiten with pressure. I sensed the commotion within the sword mound. Lu Qingxue said in a level tone. It seems the crisis has been resolved. It has, Chu Yun nodded. He gave a brief account of what had unfolded in the sword, intense space. Subduing the Tingjun sword, slaying Lord Kanglin Water's remnant obsession, and saving Zhao Yueli in the process. Zhao Yueli and her servant finally understood the truth. The sword, enlightened being dwelling within the Tingjun sword had been none other than Lord Kanglin Water's lingering obsession. Lu Qingxue responded with only a soft, She asked no follow-up questions, voiced no gasps of wonder. It was as though the story of Chu Yun transforming from a complete novice of the sword to a grand master in under 10 minutes was hardly worth remarking upon. Within 3 days his vitality had surged by 500 points. He had deployed Samadhi True Fire to drive away swarms of iron thread worms. He had made all the flying swords of the sword mound yield before him. The stream of impossible feats Chu Yun had displayed in her presence had granted her a strange sort of mental immunity. One more extraordinary event changed nothing. Where do we go next? Lu Qingxue asked, pulling a map out of her storage ring. Past the sword mound. The map showed 2 diverging paths. One ran northeast toward Lord Kanglin Water's burial mound, marked as the location of Twin, Blossom Flower, and the 10,000-year Spirit Spring. The other stretched northwest, through the misty sea of illusions, leading to the cold marrow abyss. The 2 routes pointed in completely opposite directions. Zhao Yueli glanced at the map, then at Chu Yun, and made up her mind. She spoke first, her tone decisive. Qingqing and I are heading for the burial mound. The Twin, Blossom Flower, and 10,000-year Spirit Spring are our primary objectives for this journey. As for the cold marrow, that is your quest. We will not interfere. Chu Yun nodded slightly. Zhao Yueli pulled out the yellowed old Zhao clan notebook, tore out the pages recording their ancestors' exploration notes on the misty sea of illusions, and handed them to Chu Yun. These are incomplete records left behind by our clansmen from long ago. They should still prove useful to you. Chu Yun accepted the pages without extra words. Let us go, Qingqing. Zhao Yueli turned to leave. After taking 2 steps, she paused and glanced back with a smile. Chu Yun, remember to seek me out in the capital city once you leave this secret realm. I have no wish to carry this debt of gratitude for too long. With that, she departed together with Dong Qingqing down the stone steps. Their fiery, red figures faded deeper and deeper into the valley of the sword mound, swallowed by shadow between the mountain walls. Lu Qingxue stood where she was. Her gaze drifted away from the vanishing red silhouette. She glanced down at her own toes before lifting her eyes toward Chu Yun. She certainly holds you in high regard. Chu Yun studied the pages of the Zhao clan notes. She owes me her life, so naturally she is eager to repay it. You would be the same were you in her position. I would not be so hasty. The words slipped out before Lu Qingxue could stop herself. Her cheeks flushed bright red. She spun quickly, turning her face away. Chu Yun put the notes away and headed for the stone steps. Let us go? We cannot afford to waste time. Lu Qingxue followed behind him. They descended the steps one after another, passed through the Sword Mound Valley, and set off toward the northwest. After leaving the Sword Mound, they traveled for roughly half a day. The landscape shifted before them. Flat gravel ground gave way to rolling hills. Grayish, white mist drifted between the mounds, like countless soft silk scarves floating slowly through the air. The weak water mist. Lu Qingxue halted, her expression turning grave. From here on, we enter the outer reaches of the misty sea of illusions. Chu Yun tried to extend his mental power outward. His grand thought, Master, Gray's mental force drove like a sharp blade into the gray-white mist. 50 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters. At 200 meters, he met substantial resistance, as though he had thrust his hand into a bucket of half-set glue. Chu Yun drew his mental power back. 200-meter sensing range. That should be manageable. Lu Qingxue shot him a look. 200 meters. Inside the weak water mist, that was an overwhelmingly superior sensing capability. Ordinary martial masters entering here could sense no farther than 10 meters, unable even to tell which direction they faced. A 200-meter radius meant Chu Yun could detect most dangers well in advance. Lu Qingxue took a step forward. Let us proceed. Wait a moment. Chu Yun raised his right hand, a wisp of pale, gold psychic power seeping from his fingertips. The light spot drifted gently toward Lu Qingxue and landed on her left shoulder, like a quiet firefly. This is a psychic mark, Chu Yun explained. With it, even if we get separated in the mist, I will still be able to locate you through the mark. Lu Qingxue glanced at the faint golden light on her shoulder, then looked at Chu Yun. You're afraid I'll get lost? Of course, Chu Yun said with a blank expression. If you go missing, who am I going to collect 4 years' worth of promised resources from? Lu Qingxue, keep up. Chu Yun stepped into the sea of fog first. The gray-white mist closed in at once, swallowing both of their figures. Beneath their feet, dry gravel gave way to damp soil, and the air reeked of rot. From time to time, several withered dwarf trees jutted abruptly out of the mist. Their trunks were overgrown with gray-white mycelium, flickering in the haze like standing corpses. Chu Yun walked in the lead, unleashing his full psychic power to perceive everything within a 200-meter radius ahead. They traveled on foot for more than 10 minutes. Suddenly, at the edge of Chu Yun's sensory range, he caught an odd disturbance. He halted sharply and pulled Lu Qingxue behind him. Be careful! A rustling sound echoed out of the mist ahead. The next second, several fist-sized moths burst forth from the haze. They were pale gray all over, their wings marked with eerie black patterns, and their thin, needle-like mouthparts glowed with eerie green venom. Chu Yun lifted his hand, and a wisp of scarlet true fire shot from his fingertips, forming a wall of flame before them. The moths crashed into the fire wall, hissing like scraps of paper tossed into flames, and turned to ashes instantly. More moths poured endlessly out of the fog, charging forward without any sign of fear. Lu Qingxue waved her right hand, and numerous ice shards shot forth, pinning several moths that swooped in from the sides to the ground. The still, twitching moths flapped their wings, and faint black mist seeped out of their bodies, drifting into the air. Chu Yun's pupils narrowed slightly. Abyss demonic energy. It was extremely thin, barely detectable. But Chu Yun had witnessed the aura emanating from Chu Hao's demonic transformation during the martial arts examination tournament, and he could not mistake it. Lu Qingxue also sensed something amiss and lowered her voice. Do you feel that? These moths carry traces of abyss demonic energy. Chu Yun flicked his wrist. His bracelet burst forth as a silver, white sword beam. The Tingjun sword traced a graceful arc through the air, slicing the remaining moths to pieces before flying back into his grasp. Lu Qingxue frowned. Neither the notes left by the Lu family ancestors nor those given by Zhao Yuli record anything like this. Who can say? Much like the Tingjun sword, no one expected it to hold a wisp of Kanglin Water Lord's lingering obsession. Chu Yun crouched down and prodded the pile of moth ashes with his sword tip. Beneath the cinders lay a black crystal the size of a mung bean. The black crystal exuded faint abyss demonic energy, resembling a compressed demon core. My guess is these moths are not true abyss magical beasts. Chu Yun stood. They have been corrupted by abyss demonic energy. Lu Qingxue's frown deepened. Abyss demonic energy was no trivial matter. It could not appear out of thin air. Either an abyss rift lay nearby, or some source bearing abyss demonic energy dwelt deep within the thousand illusion sea of mist. Either possibility meant this sea of fog was immensely dangerous. Should we keep going? Lu Qingxue asked. Chu Yun crushed the black crystal under his foot, his tone calm. We've come this far. The cold marrow is close. Are you willing to give up? Lu Qingxue nodded and said no more. They pressed deeper into the mist. The fog grew denser. The moths grew more numerous as well. What had started as swarms of a dozen soon became hordes of over 100 with each wave. Though the moths gathered in greater numbers, each individual was not especially powerful. Sword beams split from the Tai Spectrum sword were enough to cut down swathes of them. As Chu Yun focused on wielding the Tingjun sword, a massive entity entered his perception. Watch out. Something huge is coming. Lu Qingxue reacted instantly, loosing an ice cone. Boom. A dull crash echoed within the mist, and a dark figure stumbled and dropped to one knee. It was a damaged Obsidian 3 mech. Its left arm had been sheared off at the shoulder, exposing charred wiring and twisted alloy framework at the break. Its chest plating was heavily dented, as though crushed by colossal force. Blue energy circuits flickered erratically, humming on the brink of total failure. Half the helmet visor was shattered, revealing a deathly, pale human face within. A warrior of the Li family. The moment he spotted Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue, a flicker of light crossed his clouded eyes. His lips trembled as he forced out hoarse words. Run on. Chu Yun hurried forward. What? Speak clearly. Bugs. The Li family warrior squeezed the words out of his throat with great difficulty. What bugs? Chu Yun pressed. The warrior's pupils dilated wildly, as if reliving overwhelming terror. Gurgling sounds bubbled from his throat. Chu Yun reached out, intending to pull him free from the mech. Just as his fingers were about to touch the man's shoulder, a white shape shot out of the fog, swift as lightning. Fast. Far too fast. Barely had Chu Yun's perception registered its trajectory when strands of white silk coiled around the mech's waist and wrenched it backward. Ewa! The Li family warrior's scream lasted less than a second. The mech was dragged deep into the sea of fog. The screech of metal scraping across stone rang out a few times, then fell completely silent. The churning mist settled, and silence descended once more over their surroundings. The wreckage of the mech lay amid several withered dwarf trees, smoke curling from its broken joints. Its blue energy circuits had gone dark entirely. The cockpit stood empty. The Li family warrior was gone. More precisely, he had been taken away. Chu Yun knelt and touched the dented chest plating of the mech. Its metal edges were crumpled like creased paper. He was dragged into the fog for less than a minute. Lu Qingxue stood behind him, her voice low. Even if that creature was dragging him back to its lair, it could not have stripped the mech so completely. Chu Yun rose to his feet. That white figure pulled the mech away so fast I could not intercept it in time. If it had wanted to kill, it could have torn them apart right then and there. Why drag him off? Lu Qingxue's pupils constricted. Was it luring us here? Chu Yun scanned their surroundings. That strange sense of wrongness crept over him again. Mycelium of rot spread everywhere across the thousand illusion sea of mist, yet this spot was strangely clean, as if deliberately swept clear. We leave this place first, Chu Yun decided. He had just turned when the fog ahead suddenly parted. As though an invisible hand had pulled the mist curtain aside, a straight passageway lay open before them. At the far end of the passage stood a tree formed from countless twisted, interwoven trunks. Its main trunk rose 10 stories high. Its canopy blotted out the sky, enormous branches stretching in every direction, casting shade over a radius of 1 kilometer. Hanging from the tree were fruits. Dense, layered clusters swayed like wind, chimes, enormous cocoons. Hundreds of them, at the very least. Each cocoon was as large as a human being, wrapped in oval layers of gray, white silk etched with fine black patterns resembling ancient sealing runes. Some cocoons twitched faintly. Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue exchanged a glance, suppressing their shock, and walked down the open passage toward the great tree. The deeper they drew near, the stronger the stench of rot grew, mixed with a cloying, sweet scent that dulled the senses. Chu Yun summoned his psychic fire to burn away the dizzying effect, and wove a strand of psychic power to shield Lu Qingxue's forehead. Is this the monster's lair? Lu Qingxue fought back nausea. Looks like it. Chu Yun's gaze swept across the hanging cocoons. There are people inside these shells. His psychic power pierced the surface of the nearest cocoon. He sensed a curled human-shaped figure within, still bearing a faint heartbeat. Alive. He circled the trunk, and a gory sight met his eyes. A winged humanoid monster crouched on the ground, feeding on the remains of the Li family warrior. The warrior's chest cavity had been torn open, most of his internal organs consumed, leaving a dark red hollow space. Their arrival did not interrupt the creature's feeding. Chu Yun raised his hand, scarlet true fire gathering at his fingertips. I would advise you not to move, a voice echoed from above. Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue looked upward in unison. Perched on the highest bough of the great tree sat a figure, legs dangling loosely and swinging idly. Li Jun, a monster wearing Li Jun's face. Its body was bulkier than before, retaining a human-shaped torso covered in mottled gray-brown fuzz. A pair of 2-meter-long great wings jutted from its back, their membranes marked with eerie black patterns. I never expected the two of you would show up. Li Jun leaped from the branch. unfurling his wings to drift lightly to the ground, stopping less than 5 meters from Chu Yun. Where's Wang Zikai? Hiding somewhere? I even saved him one of the finest cocoons. Lu Qingxue stepped back half a pace instinctively. She had faced abyss magical beasts and seen battlefield carnage. Yet seeing someone who had laughed and talked with them inside the camp only a short time ago transformed into this form turned her stomach. Chu Yun studied the monster before him with a calm gaze. Li Jun, you've done quite a number on yourself. Li Jun glanced down at his own body, then lifted his head to reveal rows of sharp fangs. Impressive, isn't it? This body took 10 cycles of metamorphosis to perfect. This body of mine is not half bad either. The feeding monster beside them spoke, tossing the mangled corpse aside and slowly lifting its head. Another Li Jun. It stood upright and looked toward Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue, a strange smirk tugging at its lips. Sorry, did my earlier appearance frighten you? The two Li Juns stood side by side, moving in perfect sync as though mirror images. Even Lu Qingxue felt unsettled, and Chu Yun was caught off guard. A clone. In a sense, answered the Li Jun on the left. Not entirely. Cut in the one on the right. They spoke in turns. My consciousness can inhabit multiple bodies at once. So long as one survives, I cannot truly die. They tilted their heads simultaneously. Aren't you envious? Chu Yun did not reply. He observed them closely. Their stances, breathing rhythm, and the spread of their wing membranes were nearly identical. Yet his grand mentalist psychic sense told him the newer Li Jun on the left had noticeably weaker vital energy fluctuations, like an immature duplicate. The one on the right was the main body. Or perhaps neither of these two was the true original. Lu Qingxue could not hold back. Li Jun, are you even human anymore? TSK tisk, TSK. Cruel words. Both Li Jun's smiles faded. I merely used biological gene technology to perfectly merge superior magical beast genes with my own. The left one spoke. This is fundamentally different from corrupting yourself with demonic power. As you imagine, abyss demonic energy corrodes reason, reducing people to mindless beasts. My method is scientific and controlled. It represents humanity's leap toward a higher state of being. The right one took over. I was never blessed with outstanding talent. An older brother overshadowed me, and a younger sister vied for favor. At every family gathering, elders looked upon me as though I were worthless trash. The second son of the Li family, he let out a bitter laugh. It looks glorious on the surface, yet you geniuses could never understand the pressure I endured in secret. Lu Qingxue's eyelashes trembled. She knew all about that kind of pressure. As the eldest legitimate daughter of the Lu family, ever since awakening her ice-soul divine physique, she had carried the expectations of her entire clan. Countless eyes watched every step she took, waiting for her to slip, waiting for her to fall from her high position. That suffocating weight pressed down on her heart day and night. Things are different now. The right. Han Li Jun waved a hand, 5 gray, white air blades shooting from his fingertips to slice a boulder 10 meters away into 7 fragments. Do you see this? This is power. When talent fails you, technology makes up for it. What fate denies me, I take for myself. Chu Yun stared at him in silence for 2 seconds, then spoke. Brother, you can fool us with this act, but do not fool yourself. Silence hung in the air. Both Li Jun's expressions froze. The left, Han Li Jun's jaw twitched, and the right, Han One's eyelid twitched violently, as though struck in their most vulnerable spot. What did you say? They shouted in unison. I said. Chu Yun enunciated each word clearly. You have merely traded one cage for another. Once you were the Li family's second son, now you are host to these moths. Do you truly believe you are free? He pointed upward toward the swaying cocoons overhead. Are you speaking of your own free will right now, or are the moths speaking through you? You think you command the moth's genes. In truth, the moths are eating away at your mind little by little. You know nothing. The right. Han Li Jun's tone shifted from lazy mockery to barely contained rage. The left. Han Li Jun tried to retort. You, cold light flashed. Chu Yun's sword had already slit his throat. Before the right, Han Li Jun could process what had happened. The left, Han Li Jun's head flew upward, spraying green viscous fluid through the air. The headless body swayed for a moment on its feet before collapsing heavily to the ground. You damn it. Li Jun's voice rose sharply. He spread his wings wide and shot backward in a ghostly blur, leaving 3 overlapping after images in the air. You did not even let me finish speaking. Chu Yun stood where he was, the tip of the Tingjun sword hanging low. A drop of gray, white viscous fluid slid off the blade. Even fused with magical beast genes, your vital energy has not even broken 10,000. Trash remains trash. Take your complaints to my sword. He flung out his left palm, and a ball of scarlet true fire flew toward Li Jun. You dare use fire? Li Jun beat his wings hard and soared upward. The fireball grazed the edge of his wing and struck one of the hanging tree cocoons. Flames engulfed the cocoon at once. Muffled screeches came from within before it burst apart, charred fragments crashing to earth. Li Jun hovered in mid-air, staring down at the wreckage. Shock gave way to savage fury on his face. Very well. You have asked for this. He threw back his head and let out a shrill cry. It was not a human sound, but an insect, like call summoning its kin. Crack, crack, the cocoons hanging from the giant tree shook violently. Gray, white shells split open from the top. One Li Jun after another broke free, shaking off sticky slime and spreading their wings to take flight. Hundreds of Li Juns hung, suspended in the sky. Dense and countless, they blotted out the light. Some were smaller, newly emerged immature forms. Others were far bulkier than the original Li Jun. Hundreds of identical faces stared down at Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue below. Goosebumps rose across Lu Qingxue's back. Pale blue frost condensed in her right palm. The energy of the ice soul jade bone art surged through her meridians, ready for battle. At Chu Yun's signal, she would fight to carve a path out of this desperate situation. Chu Yun lifted his gaze toward the hundreds of figures above. Grand Mentalist, Tier's psychic power washed outward like a tide, scanning every single duplicate Li Jun. Perceptions wove a clear mental map. The Li Jun perched on the highest branch, the one who had first conversed with them, possessed the fiercest vital energy, nearing 5,000 points. All the other hundreds of duplicates registered between 1,000 and 1,500 points of vital energy, equivalent to newly advanced Grand Martial Masters. Hundreds of pairs of eyes, hundreds of ears, hundreds of psychic fields, all linked to a single shared consciousness network. What one saw, all saw. What one commanded, all received. Chu Yun was not facing hundreds of independent Grand Martial Master rank foes. He faced a collective intelligence with complete, all-angle vision. A single duplicate posed little threat, yet hundreds of Grand Martial Masters striking in perfect, unified coordination was an overwhelming force. Even if Grand Sect Master He Chang himself were pulled out from the Iron Thread River, without large-scale area of attack abilities, his vital energy would not hold out long, dragged into such a war of attrition. Lu Qingxue clearly grasped their predicament as well. The frost building in her palm grew thicker. Stay safe. Chu Yun took a step forward. Now watch my performance. Performance? Li Jun's mouth stretched grotesquely wide. 400 against 2. Victory is mine. I will wear you down through sheer numbers. He waved his arm. All 400+ Li Jun duplicates dove at once from every direction. Their wing membranes split the air with shrill whistles. Each duplicate's claws glowed with eerie green venom. A single scratch would paralyze nerves and rob a victim of the ability to move within seconds. The first wave struck head-on. The second wave came from both flanks. The third wave descended from above. 3-layered assault waves sealed off every possible direction of escape. Forward, backward, left, right, up and down. This was the advantage of shared sight and synchronized perception. Hundreds of duplicates moved like a precisely tuned meat grinder. Every strike lined up perfectly with every possible evasive path Chu Yun might take. Lu Qingxue's palms broke out in sweat as she stared fixedly at the endless mass of dark shadows. Yet, faced with this fatal trap, the corners of Chu Yun's mouth curled upward slightly. From the moment he stepped out of the sword tomb, he had been waiting for an opportunity. He wanted to test exactly how powerful the fusion of will and martial skill he had comprehended within the sword, intense space truly was. Now his test subject had arrived. Chu Yun focused his mind. Inside the Naiwan Palace between his brows, his spiritual fire surged tenfold in an instant. Vast spiritual power coursed through his meridians into his right arm and clung to the blade of the Tingjun sword. Upon the sword, silvery, white sword light intertwined with crimson true fire, creating an eerie glow that was both razor, sharp, and wildly violent. Tai split, sword, flame, shadow division. This was the art combining will and martial skill he had grasped after slaying the remnant, will of the Kanglan Water Lord. It took the form of the Tai split, sword as its carrier and the intent of the true fire art as its core. Where the sword light went, true fire followed. Where the true fire burned, the sword light was sure to strike. Sword light and true fire complemented one another, unleashing far more than double their original power. A streak of silvery, white sword light burst forth from the Tingjun sword. In mid-air, it split into 2, then 4, then 16. The divisions multiplied at a speed too fast for the naked eye to track. 65,530, 5 streaks of sword light fanned outward, every single one wrapped in crimson true fire, carving tens of thousands of scorching trails through the air. With one swing of his sword, Chu Yun loosed a downpour of sword light. Li Jun's clones flapped their wings with every ounce of their strength, attempting to break out of the sword light blockade. True, intent-tier swordsmanship had long surpassed the reaction limits of these clones. The flood of sword light cascaded down like the Milky Way spilling over, illuminating the entire area. Nearly 400 versions of Li Jun went from launching their assault to total annihilation in less than 3 seconds. High above in the air, the Li Jun with the strongest vitality still stood with his arms folded across his chest. His expression had frozen solid. Though a smile still lingered on his lips, his eyes were flooded with terror. His pupils shrank to pinpricks as he stared at the scattered corpses of his clones strewn across the ground. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. His lips trembled. Nearly 400 clones, each possessing great warrior combat power, shared vision, and fought in perfect coordination. They might not stand against a grandmaster, yet defeating any great warrior with over 1,000 vitality should have been child's play. But Chu Yun had wiped out his proud clone army in fewer than 3 seconds. Every streak of that vast sword rain carried true fire, a fusion of martial technique and willpower. An attack on this level lay far outside his understanding of what ordinary martial skills could achieve. How is this possible? Li Jun's voice grated as though rust had formed inside his throat. How can you wield such formidable swordsmanship? And this flame, how can fire cling to sword light? He dragged his gaze from the corpses on the ground to Chu Yun, his pupils wide with disbelief. According to our records, you only mastered the perfection, level 8, Extreme Fist. You had not even learned basic sword techniques. Where in the world did you learn this? Chu Yun rested the Ting Jun's sword casually over his shoulder and lifted his eyes toward Li Jun hovering in the sky, his expression calm and unruffled. You would not believe me if I told you. I just learned it. Li Jun's mouth twitched. He wanted to retort, to snap out an angry rebuttal, yet his lips quivered for a long moment without a single word escaping them. This defied every known principle of martial cultivation. Li Jun glanced at the dozens of smoking bodies on the ground, then back at the silver longsword in Chu Yun's grip. It suddenly dawned on him that he had committed a catastrophic blunder. He ought never to have lured this killing god to this place. Lu Qingxue still maintained her ice crystal barrier, untouched by any attack. Chu Yun's sword stroke had been so swift that the fight was already over before she could react. She stared at Chu Yun's back and the thousands of fading afterimages of sword light lingering around him. Lu Qingxue pressed her lips together tightly. Her fingers hanging at her side unconsciously tightened around the hem of her robe. She had thought she was long accustomed to Chu Yun's extraordinary feats. Yet witnessing such power firsthand shook her established perceptions and stirred turbulent emotions within her. 18 years of bitter cultivation, a heaven-ranked skill, and the ice-souled divine physique. All of it seemed insignificant beneath that deluge of sword light. As soon as the thought crossed her mind, she forced it away. Lu Qingxue drew in a cold breath, steadied her mind, and dismissed her ice barrier. Now was no time for reflection. The battle was far from finished. High in mid-air, Li Jun finally broke free from his overwhelming shock. He did not roar, vow revenge, or waste breath on pointless words. He took an action completely unexpected by Lu Qingxue. He turned and fled. His wings beat violently. Gray, white gusts of wind erupted from his wing membranes, shooting his body like an arrow deep into the mist sea. His flight path zigzagged up and down, left and right, as he tried to break free from Chu Yun's spiritual lock-on. Chu Yun made no move to give chase. Why are you not pursuing him? Lu Qingxue frowned as the fleeing figure shrank into the distance. What if he gets away? There is no need. Chu Yun's gaze fixed upon the colossal, sky-shading tree. He will be right back. Before Lu Qingxue could ask why, Chu Yun moved. With a casual wave of his hand, 100-meter, long silver sword light burst forth, slicing like a silken ribbon toward the tree's trunk. The gray, white fleeing figure, already a kilometer away, spun sharply around and rushed back far faster than it had fled. Stop! Li Jun's voice boomed from the sky, thick with frantic terror. He threw himself recklessly at the oncoming sword light, positioning his own body between the blade and the tree. The sword light cut deep into his chest, shattering his ribs, and halted less than an inch from his heart. Green bodily fluid gushed from the wound. Li Yun glanced down at his injury, then lifted his eyes back toward Chu Yun. Something inside his gaze crumbled away. Chu Yun sheathed his sword. So a moth-like creature has indeed seized control of your mind. Li Jun's pupils contracted violently. His lips trembled as he tried to speak, yet no sound emerged from his throat. Slowly, the light in his eyes dimmed, as though some foreign presence was withdrawing from his body. Silence hung in the air for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice had completely changed. Just how did you discover me? The moment you appeared before me. Chu Yun stared straight into his eyes and spoke deliberately. Warrior of the Li clan. No sooner had the words left his mouth than he slashed his sword downward. Both Li Jun and the massive tree were split cleanly down the middle. The tree's hollow interior was exposed. Deep within that empty cavity rested a bloated spider, like magical beast. Perched upon the spider's head was a human-shaped parasite. A warrior of the Li clan. He was the true master of this territory. The winged, Li Jun figures from earlier were merely clones cultivated from his genetic material by the monster. Their purpose was to gather intelligence and lure prey within the secret realm. The transformed Li clan warrior was far more grotesque in appearance than Li Jun standing behind Chu Yun. Lu Qingxue felt a wave of nausea rise in her stomach. I thought my disguise was flawless, the Li clan warrior said. How did you uncover me? Did you slip up when you controlled that insect cocoon to fall, letting traces of your power escape? Or did Li Jun say something careless and arouse your suspicion? The Li clan warrior's eyes darted about as he tried to work out what had gone wrong. You are simply too weak. Chu Yun raised his right hand. A wisp of pale, gold spiritual power flickered at the tip of his index finger. You never detected the spiritual mark I planted on you. The Li clan warrior's eyes widened in alarm. A spiritual mark? When? His mind raced back through his memories. Back within the fog, the moment he had been dragged away by silken threads while trapped inside his broken mech suit. Chu Yun had stretched out his hand. His fingers had never physically touched his shoulder. Yet a spiritual mark required no physical contact. In that instant, Chu Yun had left a strand of spiritual power upon him. You made Li Jun devour himself, right in front of me, but my spiritual mark was still active. That was when I knew something was wrong, Chu Yun explained. While I could not pinpoint the exact location of the mark, this was the only place in the region capable of blocking my spiritual search. The answer was obvious. The last hint of color drained from the Li clan warrior's face, leaving only mortal terror in his eyes. Stripped of his puppet and the protection of the ancient tree, he was nothing more than an ordinary great warrior barely exceeding 1,000 vitality. Against Chu Yun, he did not even stand a fighting chance. Spare my life. I can tell you everything there is to know about Wang Zikai. I know who the Grand Master protecting him is, and all of his weaknesses. I also hold information about the Tingjun sword, plus a complete map of the Phantom Mist Sea. I will reveal all of the Li clan's genetic technology to you. Please, do not kill me. Chu Yun watched his contorted face with utterly emotionless eyes. Finished with your last words? Only the Phantom Mist Sea map held even the slightest value to him. Wang Zikai and He Chong had long since perished at the hands of the Iron Worms. The Tingjun sword was already in his possession. As for the Li clan's genetic technology, judging by what he had witnessed, it was hardly worth his time. No, I can tell you where the cold marrow is hidden. The Li clan warrior's voice rose sharply, grasping desperately at his final lifeline. The cold marrow abyss is not located at the far end of the Phantom Mist Sea. I can give you its exact location. All you need to do is spare me. Chu Yun glanced over his shoulder toward Lu Qingxue. I accept your offer. Lu Qingxue opened her mouth to object, but Chu Yun raised a hand, stopping her. Hope ignited in the Li clan warrior's eyes. Truly, truly, Chu Yun spoke calmly. Tell me where the cold marrow lies, and I shall let you go. Swear it. I swear. The Li clan warrior took a deep breath, relief washing over him like air to a drowning man. It lies directly beneath this very tree. The tree's roots pierce deep into an underground spiritual energy vein. Far down within the vein rests a cold pool. The pool does not hold ordinary water. It is liquid spiritual energy known as spirit liquid, so frigid that any regular warrior touching it will be frozen solid in ice. At the very bottom of the pool lies a layer of ice, blue crystal. That is the 10,000-year cold marrow. That is exactly what your companion needs. I have told you everything. Now you must let me leave. Chu Yun nodded. You may go. The Li clan warrior could scarcely believe his ears. Really, he had expected Chu Yun to go back on his word, stall for time, or launch a sneak attack. Instead, Chu Yun lowered his sword and even stepped backward, clearing a path for him. Of course. Xu Yun's expression appeared so sincere that even Lu Qingxue was caught off guard. She stared at Xu Yun, wondering when he had become so lenient toward his enemies. The Li clan warrior slowly climbed out of the crater. 8 thick, jointed limbs bore his weight on the ground as he began heading deeper into the mist sea. After a few steps, he glanced backward. Xu Yun remained standing in place, making no movement. The warrior breathed a sigh of relief and quickened his pace. Just then, Xu Yun's voice echoed from behind him. I have chosen to spare you. The Li clan warrior halted and turned his head. But my sword has other ideas. His pupils dilated in shock. He tried to run, to flee, to activate his emergency escape arts. It was already too late. Xu Yun swung his sword. Silver sword, light wrapped in violet flames sliced toward the spider monster. The blade cleanly severed the spider's head from its torso. Its upper half spun through the air before crashing to the ground. The spider's compound eyes still twitched, its countless tiny lenses attempting to focus. You broke your promise. Xu Yun let out a low chuckle as the Tingjun sword returned to his wrist. I never make promises to creatures of the abyss. They are not worthy. Xu Yun waited until the spider monster's body went completely lifeless before looking away. Earlier, Lu Qingxue walked toward him with a complicated look on her face. You actually swore an oath. An oath to an abyss creature? Xu Yun let out a scoff. It does not deserve such respect. He split open the remaining tree roots with one sword stroke. Stones and dirt tumbled down, revealing a dark, gaping tunnel entrance. Let us head down and investigate. He jumped in first, with Lu Qingxue following closely behind. The passage sloped sharply downward, its stone walls damp and slippery. After traveling along the narrow tunnel for roughly half an hour, the cavern suddenly opened wide. An enormous underground chamber stretched out before them. 30-meter, high cave vaults hung overhead, lined with countless ice blue stalactites. Tiny glistening droplets condensed at their tips, occasionally dripping down and echoing with clear, crisp sounds in the quiet cavern. At ground level lay a deep pool. Its surface was perfectly still like a mirror, radiating piercing cold. Xu Yun stood at the water's edge and felt frigid cold creep upward from his feet. Spirit, liquid. Lu Qingxue knelt down and touched the water's surface with her fingertips. Its spiritual energy concentration is at least 10 times higher than refined body, cleansing liquid. 10 times. Xu Yun raised an eyebrow. Drinking a mouthful of that would boost vitality by hundreds of points, wouldn't it? You would risk bursting your meridians if you tried. Lu Qingxue rolled her eyes and stood back up, her gaze drifting toward the pool bottom. Beneath the water, she could faintly spot a layer of ice, blue crystals scattered like broken gemstones, radiating a soft glow. The 10,000-year-cold marrow. Her usually calm eyes lit up with rare excitement as she stared at the crystals. Xu Yun also noticed the cold marrow below and asked, Shall I retrieve it for you, or will you do it yourself? I will get it myself. Lu Qingxue hesitated for a moment, a rare trace of embarrassment crossing her cool features. While cultivating my ice, soul jade bone art, I must draw extreme spiritual energy to temper my bones and meridians. My pores open wide during practice to maximize spiritual energy absorption. External clothing would obstruct this vital energy exchange and hinder my progress. Furthermore, my vitality surges wildly through my body while I cultivate. If my practice is interrupted, the frigid energy could reverse, flow, and strike my heart meridian. At best, my meridians will be damaged. At worst, my foundation will be permanently ruined. Xu Yun paused for 2 seconds, grasping her meaning. Very well. I will keep my distance while you cultivate. Lu Qingxue's ears flushed red, yet she nodded in agreement. She pulled a palm-sized 8 trigram mirror out of her storage ring and tapped its surface. A pale cyan membrane expanded outward from the mirror, forming an upside-down translucent dome that sealed off one corner of the cold pool. Within the membrane lay her private cultivation zone. Xu Yun remained outside its boundary. Even with this protective barrier in place, Lu Qingxue was still uneasy. Please, turn your back. Xu Yun obeyed without hesitation, facing away from the cyan barrier and walking toward the far side of the cavern. As a grand spiritualist, his mental perception could easily pierce through that thin 8 trigram formation membrane if he chose to look. But he made no attempt to do so. The cavern proved far larger than Xu Yun had expected. He walked roughly 100 meters alongside the pool. He rounded a giant stone pillar hanging down from the ceiling and discovered a second, smaller pool cove. This basin was also filled with spirit, liquid, slightly shallower in depth, though no cold marrow crystals rested on its bottom. Chu Yun removed his outer robe, stored his black, scale armor inside his system space, took a deep breath, and dove into the pool. The instant he submerged himself, biting cold surrounded his body, as though thousands of ice needles pricked his pores. He sank to the bottom and activated his basic breathing technique. Ascension stairway activated. Spiritual, energy particles within the spirit, liquid streamed toward him like rivers flowing into the ocean, flooding his meridians. They traveled along his vitality pathways to feed the vitality crystal core in his dantian. Permanent vitality plus 10. The spirit, liquid was indeed 10-fold more potent than standard body, cleansing liquid, its power staggering. Chu Yun reveled in the satisfying surge of strength. A whirlpool of vitality spun rapidly around him, greedily absorbing the pool's spiritual energy. Deep inside his dantian, his vitality crystal core steadily grew larger. Starting no bigger than a grain of rice, it expanded to the size of a soybean, then a peanut. His full attention remained fixed inside his dantian as he felt his power rise with every rotation of the crystal core. It felt as though a sponge left dry for 18 years had finally been plunged into the open ocean. 10 minutes passed. 25 minutes. 30 minutes. Current vitality, 1305 at that very moment. The spiritual mark situated between Chu Yun's brows suddenly throbbed violently. Chu Yun's eyes flew open. It was Lu Qingshue's spiritual mark. He had deliberately kept his spiritual awareness away from her location, yet the mark he had left upon her was shaking frantically. Something has gone wrong. Chu Yun swam back to the surface, changed into fresh clothes, and strode quickly toward the opposite side of the cold pool. Inside the 8-trigram barrier, Lu Qingxue sat at the pool's edge, leaning back against the cavern wall. Her long hair clung messily to her face and shoulders. Her face was deathly pale, her lips purple. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her brows knotted in agony. Clutched tightly in her right palm was an infant, fist-sized ice, blue crystal. The cold marrow. Its hue was far deeper than the crystals resting on the pool floor, resembling highly compressed solid ice. Fine natural rune patterns, formed by condensed spiritual energy particles, covered its surface. From deep within the cold marrow, visible wispy trails of icy cold energy snaked upward from her palm. Frost crept across her skin, spreading from her shoulder to her collarbone, then further across her chest like a sickness consuming her flesh. Most alarming of all were her eyes. Ice, blue cold light was spreading across her pupils, slowly swallowing up their black irises. Ice, soul backlash. Though the ice, soul divine physique naturally drew ice, a tribute spiritual, energy far exceeding her body's tolerance threshold, could trigger a dangerous overload. Instead of absorbing the cold power, her physique would turn against her. Frigid energy would begin flowing backwards up her meridians from her dantian, eventually freezing her body solid. She had acted too hastily. Desperate to fully awaken her ice, soul divine physique, she had selected one of the highest energy cold marrow shards. During this journey to the Kanglan secret realm, if she failed to fully awaken her physique, returning to the Lu clan meant facing her arranged marriage to Wang Zikai. Even though Wang Zikai was dead, the Wang clan still remained powerful. The marriage alliance had never been Wang Zikai's personal wish, but a political bargain struck between the Wang and Lu clans. Was an unwanted political marriage her unavoidable fate? She refused to accept it. She was so close to awakening her full power. Only one final step remained. Outside the formation, Chu Yun swept out with his spiritual sense, and clearly sensed that Lu Qingshue's aura was rapidly fading. The Tingjun sword shot forth instantly from his wrist, its silvery, white blade carving a cold, sharp arc through the dim glow of the karst cave. The light membrane of the 9-palace 8-trigram formation split open at once, like silk sliced apart by a sharp blade. Pale cyan fragments drifted through the air, dissolving into flecks of fluorescent light. At the moment the formation shattered, Lu Qingxue remained conscious. She wanted to call out for him not to enter, to tell Chu Yun to retreat, to preserve her last shred of dignity. Yet her lips were frozen stiff, and no sound escaped her throat. Her whole body had grown numb with cold. She could not even lift a single finger. Helpless, she sat there, her body fully exposed before Chu Yun. Back in the azure, mystery secret realm, a formation barrier had stood between them, and he had only caught a blurry glimpse of her figure. This time, the barrier was torn away. Chu Yun stood less than 10 meters away, face to face with her. Shame, panic and helplessness surged wildly inside her chest. But no emotion showed on her features. She could not even blush, for her blood was nearly frozen. Chu Yun's gaze rested on her for only a split second before he looked away. He took off his outer coat, stepped forward gently, and draped it over her shoulders. The black tracksuit jacket still carried the warmth of his body. Mild heat seeped into her skin, and Lu Qingshue's body gave a faint tremble. Don't move. Chu Yun's voice stayed calm, without the slightest trace of fluster. You do not wish to lose all your cultivation, do you? Lu Qingxue tried to push him away, to wrap herself in ice. Yet she lacked even the strength to raise her hand. She closed her eyes and resigned herself to the situation. Last time, after that fleeting glimpse, she had fooled herself into believing he might have seen nothing. That what happened could have been nothing more than an illusion caused by fluctuations in the formation. This time was different. Their bodies had come into close proximity. Chu Yun's jacket rested upon her shoulders, carrying his warmth and his scent. She could no longer lie to herself. Chu Yun paid no mind to Lu Qingshue's inner turmoil. All of his attention focused on the frigid energy raging inside her body. His grand mentor, level spiritual sense extended outwards like countless fine probes, traveling down her meridians until they reached her dantian. The situation was far worse than he had expected. The cold energy had spilled out from her dantian and begun to backlash against her meridian channels. Once her meridians froze completely, the foundation of the ice, soul jade bone art, would collapse irreparably. Not only would she fail to awaken the ice, soul divine physique, she would lose all of her existing cultivation. Chu Yun raised his right hand, and a wisp of crimson, true fire seeped out from his fingertips. Bear with it. This may hurt a little. He pressed the true fire against her Jianjing acupoint. The instant the true fire flowed into her body, Lu Qingshue's whole frame jerked, and a soft, quiet moan escaped her lips. The crimson true fire traveled down her meridians and clashed head on with the icy, blue cold energy inside her. Hiss, the two extreme forces collided within her, producing a faint sound like red, hot iron dropped into ice, cold water. The cold energy retreated half an inch, yet it moved no farther. Chu Yun's brows drew tighter. His true fire could indeed dispel the chill. But the cold soul crystal resting in the palm of Lu Qingshue's right hand kept pouring forth new waves of frigid energy. He dispelled the cold from the front, while the crystal replenished it from behind. His treatment addressed only the symptoms, not the root cause. He had to resolve the problem at its source. Chu Yun's gaze fell upon the cold soul crystal. Could he destroy it outright? No. The cold energy had already taken root inside her. Removing its source rashly risked damaging her meridians. His only option was to slow the rate at which the crystal released its icy power. As a crystallized form of spiritual energy, this substance was fundamentally similar to the blood energy crystal core inside one's dantian. Both were highly condensed, solid forms of spiritual power. One formed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the other cultivated from one's own vitality. If that was the case, Chu Yun stretched out his left hand, fingers splayed, and closed his palm firmly around the cold soul crystal. The moment his skin made contact with it, a wave of cold far fiercer than that of the pool water surged up his meridians like a venomous serpent, racing straight for his dantian. Inside the mud palace at his brow, his spiritual fire blazed violently. Wisp after wisp of true fire formed an invisible barrier, trapping the icy power inside his left arm and preventing it from reaching the vital core of his body. Cold and fire clashed furiously within the meridians of his arm, hissing loudly. Frost formed on the skin of his left arm, only to evaporate under the heat of his true fire. The cycle repeating over and over in a harrowing display. Lu Qingxue noticed the flow of cold energy from the crystal dwindling rapidly. She opened her eyes sharply and witnessed the scene before her. Chu Yun continued dispelling the cold inside her with his right hand, while his left remained clamped around the cold soul crystal. Half of his arm was coated in frost, the other flushed bright red from burning heat. Are you throwing your life away? Be quiet. Do not speak. Chu Yun gritted his teeth, yet his tone remained eerily steady. Every word you utter wastes my spiritual power. Lu Qingxue pressed her lips together and said no more. She watched beads of sweat trickle down Chu Yun's forehead, his trembling fingers, and his arm tormented and turned by ice and flame. Her heart skipped a beat. Chu Yun sensed a balance form between the true fire and the cold energy inside him. Without hesitation, he activated the ascension stairway. Within his microcosmic realm, time began to accelerate. Year 1. Chu Yun attempted to force the invading cold energy out of his body. Failure. The root of the cold lay not within him, but inside the cold soul crystal itself. As long as the crystal remained intact, the icy power would never run dry. Year 5. Chu Yun tried a new approach, absorbing the cold energy. The cold soul crystal was a spiritual energy crystal of extreme ice attribute. His basic breathing art absorbed ordinary spiritual energy. Why could it not absorb ice-aligned power? He circulated his basic breathing art. No success. The cold energy refused to obey. It rampaged through his meridians, seeking to freeze everything it touched. Year 10. Chu Yun altered his strategy. He stopped trying to absorb the crystal and began to study its crystalline structure. Its composition bore striking similarities to the blood energy crystal core in a dantian. If it was an energy core, it could be refined. Lu Qingxue herself was living proof. He sent strands of spiritual sense deep into the crystal, slowly deciphering its internal makeup. Year 30. Chu Yun discovered the solution. He would not refine it using vitality, but assimilate it with spiritual power. The cold soul crystal's energy froze meridians because its spiritual frequency clashed completely with the natural frequency of human vitality. If he adjusted his own spiritual frequency to match that of the crystal, he could trick it into accepting him as kin, eliminating its rejection response. Year 60. Chu Yun mastered the technique completely. He extended his spiritual power and wrapped it gently around the entire cold soul crystal. Then he slowly adjusted his spiritual frequency. The process drained massive amounts of spiritual power. Every passing second burned away his spiritual fire. The flame within his mud palace shifted from crimson to dark red, then bright yellow, finally turning a near-transparent golden hue. The instant the golden fire flickered, the cold soul crystal trembled violently. The raging outpouring of cold energy abruptly subsided. Ice blue light flickered across its surface, as if the crystal was confirming something. Then it fell silent. No more cold leaked out. No more resistance against Chu Yun's vitality. The cold soul crystal was now tamed, resting docilely within his palm. Ding detected. Host has refined the 10,000-year cold soul crystal. Spiritual energy attribute. Ice. Optimization complete. Basic breathing art. Ice fire homologous breathing art. Effect. Absorbs both ice and fire attribute spiritual energy. Conversion efficiency increased by 300%. Chu Yun's lips curved upward slightly as he read the notification on his system panel. Ice fire homologous. He knew exactly how to work with this power. Chu Yun looked down at Lu Qingxue. She looked back at him. Color had returned to her face. The icy blue glow in her eyes faded, and her dark pupils slowly recovered. Seeing that she was safe, Chu Yun handed her neatly folded clothes. Put these on first. Lu Qingxue snapped back to her senses. Heat rushed to her cheeks, spreading from her jaw to the tips of her ears, and faint pink flushed the skin of her previously pale collarbone. She snatched the clothes, turned her back toward him, and dressed herself hurriedly. Chu Yun waited patiently, looking away. 2 minutes later, her voice came from behind him, slightly strained. I am ready. She still wore his oversized jacket, its sleeves long enough to cover her fingers. The collar slipped loosely, revealing part of her collarbone. She kept her head lowered, not daring to meet his gaze. Thank you. Her voice was barely audible. Chu Yun nodded. Determined to see the matter through, he held out his left palm. This crystal has been refined by me. Its spiritual particles are now stable. Would you like to try absorbing its power again? Lu Qingxue shook her head. I have already completed my awakening. That happened while you were suppressing the cold energy inside me. She paused. Even with the crystal's support, reaching the peak of the 12th layer of the Ice Soul Jade Bone art would normally take 10 days. But the cold backlash cleared the last few blocked acupoints inside my body. The Ice Soul Divine Physique has awakened completely. Strangely, Lu Qingxue felt none of the joy she had expected. Awakening the Divine Physique had given her the leverage she needed to negotiate with her clan and escape her arranged marriage to the Wang family. Yet happiness eluded her. Chu Yun raised an eyebrow. He had assumed she would need to refine the crystal gradually to finish her awakening. Instead, the backlash had shattered an internal barrier within her. Sometimes destruction paved the way for rebirth. He could not have agreed more. Very well. Chu Yun flipped his palm and stored the cold soul crystal away. In that case, it belongs to me. He could not wait to test his new ice fire homologous breathing art and its 300% absorption boost to see how much vitality he could gain. Silence settled over the cavern for several seconds. Shall we head back up? Lu Qingxue spoke first, her tone carrying a subtle softness. Her main objective inside the secret realm had been achieved. She wanted nothing more than to return to the surface and leave this place. Staying underground made her feel unsafe. And whenever her mind quieted, memories of recent events played over and over. Chu Yun breaking through the formation, her exposed body, his jacket draped over her shoulders, fire and ice intertwining within her veins. Stop. She forced herself to push those thoughts deep into the back of her mind. Noticing her embarrassment, Chu Yin chose not to tease her. You can go ahead to the surface if you feel uncomfortable. I will collect a few more cold soul crystals and join you shortly. Touch your spiritual mark twice quickly if you run into trouble. And do not fight alone. Until you repay the 4-year supply of resources you owe me. Your life is mine to protect. His words carried an overbearing, yet natural tone. Lu Qingxue could not argue. Ever since their journey along the Iron Wire River, Chu Yun had stood between her and every threat. He Chong, Wang Zikai, Li Jun, the spider beast, and the cold backlash from the crystal. Without him, she would have drowned in the river, trapped inside an insect cocoon, or frozen solid. The feeling of being protected was complicated. It brought reassurance, gratitude, and a hint of resentment toward her own helplessness. But she was not the kind of person who only took help without giving anything in return. Do not push yourself too hard either. She met his eyes, a spark of stubbornness shining in hers. Cold soul crystals are far from easy to refine. The one you just absorbed had most of its spiritual energy drained by me. A fully intact crystal contains at least 3 times as much power. I will stay here to stabilize my newly advanced cultivation. She trailed off, yet her meaning was clear. If trouble arises again, I can provide backup. Suit yourself. Chu Yin turned and walked toward the pool. Just do not interrupt my cultivation. He took a deep breath and dove beneath the water with a quiet splash that echoed through the cavern. Lu Qingxue sat cross-legged on the ground, closed her eyes, and began circulating the ice-soul jade bone art to solidify her breakthrough. Cold energy drifted off her body, forming a thin layer of frost around her. Beneath the water, Chu Yun swam to a secluded corner of the pool bottom, far enough away from Lu Qingxue. He erected a barrier of spiritual sense around himself, sealing off all fluctuations in vitality and spiritual power. Cultivation was a private practice. Like Lu Qingxue, he preferred no audience while training. He pulled out the refined cold soul crystal and held it in his palm. He activated his ice-fire homologous breathing art. Ascension Stairway, activate. Deep within his dantian, his blood energy crystal core began spinning rapidly. Unlike his first refinement, the cold energy no longer charged wildly through his meridians. Instead it flowed like a tamed river, following the new pathways opened by his ice-fire homologous breathing art. It streamed peacefully into his dantian. The extreme cold spiritual power transformed into pure vitality. His blood energy crystal core visibly expanded. Vitality permanently plus 150. Chu Yun's heart leaped with excitement. That was the power of his 300% efficiency boost. He suppressed his excitement and kept circulating his new breathing technique. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. All spiritual energy inside the crystal was exhausted. Its once ice-blue surface turned gray and cracked. Chu Yun glanced at his status panel. Current vitality, 2805. His vitality had jumped from 1305 to 2805, a gain of 1,500 points in just 10 minutes. Chu Yun breathed deeply to calm himself. His gaze swept over the pool floor, covered with hundreds of cold soul crystals of varying sizes. A rough estimate placed their number well above 100. If he absorbed them all, he did a quick mental calculation. Even if each crystal granted him 3,000 vitality points, 100 crystals would yield 300,000 vitality points. 300,000. To put that number in perspective, Grandmaster rank required vitality above 10,000. Great Grandmaster rank required vitality above 100,000. 300,000 vitality could carry him well into the mid-Great Grandmaster realm. But one major problem remained. The secret realm rules forbade anyone at Grandmaster level or higher from entering. If a cultivator broke through to Grandmaster inside this realm, their power would be sealed to Great Warrior rank, and they would be unable to advance ever again after leaving. His current vitality stood at 2805. He still needed more than 7,000 vitality points to hit the Grandmaster threshold of 10,000. That meant he could safely absorb at most 2 more crystals, pushing his vitality close to 9,000, then stop. If he broke through to Grandmaster here, all his hard work would be wasted by the realm's suppression. Chu Yun made his decision. He would raise his vitality to 9,900, leaving himself a safe buffer. He would wait until leaving the secret realm before attempting the Grandmaster breakthrough. He reached down and picked up a brand new cold soul crystal from the pool bed. It felt icy in his grasp, brimming with far richer spiritual energy than his first crystal. Chu tightened his grip, ready to activate his ice-fire homologous breathing art. Then the ground beneath his feet gave way. The layer of crystal covering the pool bottom split open without warning. A pitch-black whirlpool erupted, a gaping maw from the abyss that swallowed him whole in an instant. Chu Yun barely had time to react before the vortex dragged him away. Lu Qingshue's figure on the cavern shore receded into the distance. He instinctively channeled his vitality to break free, but the whirlpool's pull was too fierce, overwhelming, and unstoppable. His body tumbled endlessly downward through darkness, as if falling straight toward the planet's core. An invisible force wrenched Chu Yun away from his surroundings, lifting him out of reality and tossing him into another space. He opened his eyes. He found himself inside a mountain valley. A long crack sliced through the valley's center, roughly 10 meters in length, as though someone had cut open a gash in empty air. The air rippled around its edges, and faint wisps of black mist drifted out from time to time. A woman sat directly in front of the rift. She wore an ancient, water-green dress whose long hem spread across the ground like still water. Her jet-black hair cascaded over her shoulders and spilled across the earth, its ends vanishing into shadow beneath her skirt. Her eyebrows curved like distant mountains, her skin was fair and smooth, and her peach-shaped eyes gave her the appearance of a classical beauty. Right now, those amber-hued peach eyes were fixed on Chu Yun. "How did you get here?" the woman asked. Chu Yun blinked, looked down at himself, then scanned his surroundings. "I do not know. I was suddenly pulled in by a whirlpool." The woman stared at him for 2 seconds, seemingly judging whether he told the truth. Chu Yun's mind raced. An abyss rift, an isolated dimension, an ancient robed woman with the power to yank him into this space. His first thought turned to Lord Kanglan Water. Yet Lord Kanglan Water's residual consciousness had appeared as an elderly man. Who was this young-looking woman? "Forgive me, elder. Do you know Lord Kanglan Water?" The woman's eyebrows lifted slightly, and a faint smile flickered in her amber eyes. "You mean that brat trapped inside the Tingjun sword? Is he still around?" "Brat?" That ancient warrior lord from 10,000 years ago was called a brat by this woman. Chu Yun's mouth twitched. "I believe he has passed away. Did you kill him?" "No. I only destroyed a remnant of his obsession." Chu Yun paused. "May I ask your identity, elder?" The woman stood and circled him, examining him from head to toe. "A grand mentor slaying a warrior lord's remnant obsession would mark you as a heaven-blessed genius, even in my era. You have earned the right to know my name. I am Lu Fengxian, the first saint of spiritual sense in all of history." Saint of spiritual sense. Chu Yun's eyes widened in shock. Within the entire recorded history of the Dragon Kingdom's martial arts world, the highest documented rank for spiritual sense cultivators was Sense Lord. Titles such as Sense Emperor, Sense Saint, and Sense Sovereign were only theoretical rank scholars had speculated about, ones no human had ever actually attained. If what she said was true, then the woman standing before him was the strongest psychic in the history of the Dragon Kingdom, bar none. Moreover, Chu Yun had never heard the name Lu Fengxian before. He had scored full marks in the liberal arts subjects. While he could not recite the entire history of the Dragon Kingdom word for word, he remembered every person of even minor renown in the martial arts chronicles. There was absolutely no record of anyone named Lu Fengxian. "You truly know nothing at all." Lu Fengxian let out a soft sigh. "I have another title far more widely known. The Abyss Madonna." Chu Yun froze. Those 4 words struck his heart like a blunt hammer. The Abyss Madonna. He knew that name all too well. The very first lesson in Dragon Kingdom martial arts history was the Abyss Invasion. Its opening line read, "Year 1 of the old calendar, the first human to deliberately open an abyss rift." Codename, the Abyss Madonna, the greatest traitor to humanity. A lackey of the Abyss, the originator of the Abyss Invasion. Textbooks contained only a few brief descriptions of her. Female, psychic, unknown age, unknown cultivation level. For reasons unknown, she opened the Abyss Rift of her own free will, giving rise to the first Abyss secret realm within Dragon Kingdom territory. Monsters ran rampant, and countless lives were lost. She was later besieged by Dragon Kingdom martial saints and executed atop Kunlun Peak. No portrait, no detailed deeds, no real name. Not even the 3 characters, Lu Fengxian, appeared in any textbook. The title, The Abyss Madonna, itself stood as a judgment. The word Madonna was the textbook's bitterest sarcasm. And now, this greatest traitor of humanity stood right in front of him. Chu Yun remained silent for a long while. Then he spoke. "Greetings, Senior Madonna." Lu Fengxian looked at him. Her amber eyes narrowed slightly, surprise flickering deep within them. Over tens of thousands of years, she had seen countless people. Everyone who had made their way to this place reacted in much the same way upon hearing the four words, the Abyss Madonna: fear, rage, hatred, contempt, or some twisted mixture of those emotions. No one had ever responded like this young man, calm and utterly shameless. Interesting. The last time I met someone as shameless as you was 20,000 years ago. Lu Fengxian smiled faintly. I was the one who opened the very first Abyss Rift. I thought I could control it. I believed the spiritual energy from the Abyss would let humanity break through martial arts limits and put an end to endless wars. I saw myself as a savior. She paused. But you have seen the outcome. Chu Yin said nothing. He listened quietly. Abyssal demonic energy poured out of the rift. The first lives it consumed were my comrades in arms. They turned into monsters right before my eyes, then turned to kill me. I fought with every ounce of my strength to seal the rift, yet that day could never be undone. Lu Fengxian lifted her gaze and swept it across the rift in the valley. This is where the very first Abyss Rift opened. Using my Saint Psychic powers, I tore this rift away from Kunlun Peak and sealed it inside an independent dimension I created. Then I locked myself in here with it. Chu Yun's Adam's apple bobbed. 20,000 years. Alone. Sitting before a rift. No one to talk to. No one to rely on. Not even a clear sense of time passing. Truly a person of extraordinary perseverance. No wonder she had dared to open an Abyss secret realm. Anyone else would have gone mad long ago. Chu Yun wanted to say something. Rebuke her? He dared not. Comfort her? Equally impossible. Praise her? That would be sheer madness. Silence remained his only choice. You are the first person to enter this dimension without receiving my invitation. It seems some hidden force guided you here. Take this as a welcoming gift. Lu Fengxian pulled an object from her sleeve and tossed it lightly. It landed firmly in Chu Yun's palm. What is this? Chu Yun glanced down. It was a jade talisman the size of his palm. Its shape was identical to the Azure Mystery Talisman, yet its color was deeper, its patterns denser, and it radiated a subdued, faint glow. Ding detected fragment of the Azure Mystery Talisman. Begin fusion? Chu Yun focused his thoughts. Fusion in progress. 10%, 50%, 100% fusion complete. Azure Mystery Talisman Dark Firmament Talisman Ability 1. Perfectly conceal vital energy fluctuations. Suppress your cultivation freely and disguise yourself as a warrior of any level below your true realm. Ability 2. Resist secret realm rule suppression. The bearer retains their full combat power and may ignore rule suppression in every secret realm except the Dark Firmament Ruins. Ability 3. Dark Firmament Ruins Guidance. The talisman will resonate automatically when drawing near to the entrance of the Dark Firmament Ruins. Chu Yun stared at the system panel, his heart pounding wildly. Immunity to secret realm rule suppression. What did that mean? From then on, whenever he entered any secret realm, his cultivation would no longer be suppressed. The rules of the Azure Wave Water Mansion applied to grandmasters and higher-ranked warriors. With this talisman, he could move freely at his full true power. No more worrying about suppression from secret realm laws. Once he returned to the cold deep pool, he was guaranteed to reach at least the Grandmaster realm. This talisman came into my possession by chance long ago, Lu Fengxian said calmly. I believe it is a key to unlock some secret realm. It stirred restlessly the moment you stepped inside this space, so it must be destined for you. Chu Yun barely heard her words. He simply nodded repeatedly with a foolish, overjoyed grin. Noticing his lack of composure, he quickly reined in his surging excitement. He cupped his fists. Thank you, senior. Lu Fengxian waved a hand dismissively. No need to thank me. This talisman served no purpose left in my hands. It is better off with you. Chu Yun tucked the talisman inside his robe, then did something even bolder. Senior, might I ask you a few questions about psychic cultivation? Lu Fengxian stared at him, stunned. You really are shameless. You praised me for that a moment ago. Chu Yun replied without the slightest trace of embarrassment. Lu Fengxian laughed in exasperation. Do you know who I am? The Abyss Madonna, humanity's sinner, a prisoner for 20,000 years. Aren't you afraid I will harm you? Chu Yun's reasoning was crystal clear. If you wished to kill me, I would have died the very second I stepped into this dimension. Besides, you are the greatest saint psychic of all time. Why should I learn from people who have not even broken through to Psychic Lord, when I could learn from you? Moreover, any power I gain from you will ultimately be used to fight against the Abyss monsters. You certainly dare to speak your mind. Lu Fengxian raised her hand. 3 fist-sized crystals floated out from her sleeve and hovered before Chu Yun. The crystals glowed deep crimson, covered in fine golden veins. Every flicker rippled the surrounding spiritual energy. There is no need for formal lessons. When I built this dimension, 3 void fire crystals remained. Each one contains a vast source of spiritual power. Combined, they are enough to raise you to the rank of Psychic Lord. Chuyin reached out and took them. Beneath his palms, he could feel oceans of spiritual power flowing slowly inside each crystal. He drew a deep breath and stored the 3 crystals away. Then disaster struck. The dark red rift at the center of the valley shook violently without warning. The air along its edges twisted wildly, and wisps of black, demonic energy surged out. Moving at terrifying speed, the energy coalesced into a thick tentacle that shot straight for Chu Yun's face. Demonic energy. Pure, concentrated abyssal demonic energy. Dense enough almost to turn solid, reeking of nauseating rot. Wherever the tentacle passed, light itself seemed swallowed, leaving a lingering black trail hanging in the air. Chu Yun's pupils constricted sharply. Before his spiritual power could lock onto its target, the cold breath of death closed around his throat. How dare you? Lu Fengxian's eyes flashed. Her right hand clenched in midair. Golden spiritual power formed a giant palm that seized the demonic tentacle in an iron grip. The tentacle writhed like a snake caught by its neck, yet could not shift the golden palm an inch. Lu Fengxian stepped to the edge of the rift and pushed the tentacle slowly back inside. A low roar echoed from within. More demonic energy attempted to burst outwards. Lu Fengxian advanced one step further, wove hand seals, and crushed the surge back down. The whole valley rumbled. Vast seas of spiritual power burst forth from her body, forming an invisible barrier that clamped firmly over the rift. At last, the twisted edges calmed, and the dark red glow stabilized once again. Chu Yun stayed in a defensive stance, his fingertips ice-cold. Only now did he truly grasp how horrifying pure abyssal demonic energy was. The faint traces of corruption that had infected Chu Hao paled in comparison. He had been misled by preconceived notions. Now he finally understood why Lu Fengxian was known as the Abyss Madonna, and why history branded her a traitor. Even Grandmaster warriors would stand no chance against unadulterated abyssal demonic energy. Lu Fengxian lowered her hand. Her complexion had grown noticeably paler. It is time for you to leave. Chu Yun glanced toward the rift. Senior, what was that? Your sudden arrival upset this dimension's spiritual energy balance. The creatures of the abyss caught the scent of a living human and tried to drag you inside as nourishment. Lu Fengxian waved him away as if shooing an insect. Go at once. Do not waste any more of my spiritual power. Chu Yun sensed her spiritual energy fluctuations. Sealing the rift just now had drained at least 1/3 of her reserves. A terrible realization dawned on him. For 20,000 years, Lu Fengxian had maintained this seal, using her own spiritual power. The barrier could not hold forever. Even a Saint Psychic's spiritual strength was finite, and he had just taken her last 3 void fire crystals. How long remained? 1 year? 2 years? Merely a few months? Chu Yun could not know, so he asked, Senior, how much longer can your seal endure? I cannot accept these void fire crystals. Lu Fengxian looked at the crystals in his grasp and smiled. I did not expect you to be so observant. Keep the crystals. They are useless to me now. As for the seal's remaining lifespan, that is not a problem for a great psychic like you to worry about. Your priority is to leave immediately and grow stronger as quickly as you can. Chu Yun fell silent. Lu Fengxian was right. At his current level, he could not even draw near to the abyss rift. He was far too weak. Yet the cold deep pool still held huge reserves of ice-deep crystals waiting for him to refine. Combined with the 3 void fire crystals, his strength would soon undergo earth-shaking change. Chu Yun resolved to depart without delay. When he tried to leave, however, he realized he had no idea how. He stood awkwardly in place. I know you may find this hard to believe, but I truly have no way out of here. Lu Fengxian. She stared at his innocent, bewildered face for 2 silent seconds. Could you not retrace your original path? Chu Yun glanced behind him at the desolate valley, then looked back at Lu Fengxian. His meaning was plain. There was no path back. Lu Fengxian closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. You really do make trouble for me. She lifted her right hand, held 2 fingers together, and tapped Chu Yun lightly on the forehead. His consciousness plunged. The world before his eyes shattered like a reflection on water. Then endless darkness. Then water. Ice-cold pool water flooded in from every direction, filling his nose and mouth. Chu Yun's eyes flew open. He kicked instinctively and broke the surface. Gasping for air, he let water stream down his hair and cheeks. The cold deep pool. He was back. Lu Qingxue hurried over when she saw him surface. What happened? Nothing. Chu Yun hauled himself onto the bank. His mind replayed all he had just witnessed. He turned to face Lu Qingxue, his expression serious. I may need to cultivate here for some time. If you wish to leave the secret realm early, you may go now. There is no need to wait for me. Though she had no clue what he had encountered at the bottom of the pool, Lu Qingxue trusted him completely after everything they had endured together. How long? I cannot say. Chu Yan shook his head. 3 days, 10 days, or perhaps longer. The secret realm will remain open for another 20 days, Lu Qingxue replied calmly. I can wait. It is not simply a matter of time. Chu Yan paused. My cultivation may trigger disturbances. It might not be safe for you. Practice as you need. I shall consolidate my own realm. Lu Qingxue rose, walked to the far side of the pool, and sat cross-legged. My eye-soul physique has only just awakened fully. It requires time to adjust. I will not disturb you. No questions, no hesitation, no unnecessary words. Chu Yan glanced at her, nodded, and dove back into the pool. Deep beneath the water, he sank to the very bottom and spread his spiritual energy field outwards. He grasped one ice-deep crystal in his palm. He activated the Ice-Fire homologous breathing technique. Ascending God Ladder, activate. Chu Yan closed his eyes, cast away all distractions, and focused his awareness deep within his dantian. Time accelerated inside his inner world. The ice-deep crystal in his hand refined little by little. Vital energy plus 150 permanently vital energy, plus 150 permanently 2,000 points, 3,000 points, 4,500 points. His vital energy value soared like a runaway horse. Deep in his dantian, his vital energy core swelled rapidly, from the size of a peanut to a longan fruit, then to a walnut. 1 hour later, current vital energy, 10050, 10,000 vital energy points. Grandmaster Realm. A Grandmaster's vital energy core stopped being a simple nucleus and began transforming into a pellet. Larger, rounder, denser, brimming with powerful vital force. Chu Yan did not stop. He glanced at the dozens of remaining ice-deep crystals scattered across the pool bed, glowing pale blue. He kept refining. Time slipped by. No day or night existed in the cavern, only perpetual dimness and faint blue light. Lu Qingxue sat on the bank, opening her eyes occasionally to check the still pool surface before returning to her meditation. 12 hours later. Current vital energy, 10050, 100,000 vital energy points. Great Grandmaster Realm. His vital energy core expanded once more, growing to the size of a fist. A single golden vein stretched from its outer surface to its heart, radiating warm, heavy power. Martial Rune. This was the unique sign of breaking through to Great Grandmaster. The third day, one ice-deep crystal after another dissolved into ash at the bottom of the pool. Current vital energy, 500,000, 500,000 vital energy points. Martial Spirit Realm. 108 golden runes covered his vital energy core, spinning of their own accord and resonating with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Chu Yan's body underwent another transformation. Bone density, muscle strength, and reflex speed all reached a whole new tier. The sixth day, at the bottom of the pool, Chu gripped the very last ice-deep crystal. Its icy blue color faded rapidly, turning pale blue, then gray, until it crumbled to fine dust. Current vital energy, 100,050, 1 million vital energy points. Martial King Realm. Boom. A massive wave of vital energy pressure exploded outwards from Chu Yan's body. Even shielded by his spiritual energy field, the shockwave rippled up through the water to break the surface. Lu Qingxue's eyes snapped open. She watched the pool churn violently, as if some colossal beast was awakening deep underwater. The icy blue water turned faintly red-tinged, a sign that vital energy was so dense it leaked outwards. Within seconds, the turbulent water fell quiet again. Everything returned to calm. Lu Qingxue stared at the surface, her heart racing. She knew Chu Yan had been cultivating deep below, yet she had never sensed such huge commotion before. Had he broken through to Grandmaster already? That speed was unbelievable. Less than 10 days in total. Yet breaking through to Grandmaster inside this secret realm would trigger the Azure Wave Water Mansion suppression rule, locking his power down to Great Warrior level. That would ruin his future progress. She could not believe Chu Yan would make such a reckless choice. And yet the aura she had sensed definitely belonged to a Grandmaster-level vital energy fluctuation. Her thoughts hit an impasse. Either Chu Yan had lost his senses, or he had found a way around the secret realm rules. The second thought crossed her mind, only for her to dismiss it instantly. Impossible. For hundreds of years, countless elite warriors had entered the Azure Wave secret realm. Tens of thousands had tried to exploit loopholes, Yet reality had crushed every attempt. Anyone who advanced to Grandmaster within the secret realm would see their martial path severed the moment they left it, never able to improve again. That was an ironclad, unbreakable law of this place. She sighed softly. There was no point overthinking it. Lu Qingxue took a deep breath, forced herself to look away, and closed her eyes once more. All she could do was wait. Wait for the moment he rose from the water and revealed the truth. Deep under the pool, Chu Yun slowly opened his eyes. A faint streak of dark gold light flashed briefly across his pupils. He looked down. No intact ice-deep crystals remained on the pool bed, only thick layers of gray dust and sand. In just 6 days, he had accumulated 1 million vital energy points. Early-stage martial king, a rank high enough to found his own sect. Within the Dragon Kingdom, that level of strength qualified one to guard an entire province. Song Qingtian was a martial king. Chu Yun had covered decades of Song Qingtian's journey in merely 6 days. Chu Yun breathed deeply, steadying his racing heart. With a thought, he concealed his true vital energy reading. Displayed vital energy, 3,000 true vital energy, 100,0050. A gain of roughly 2,000 vital energy points during his time inside the Azure Wave secret realm was a believable, reasonable figure. Now, it was time to raise his spiritual power. Chu Yun took a primordial void fireflame stone out from his system space. The crimson crystal glowed with a warm radiance in the palm of his hand. He took a deep breath and activated the prison-suppressing meditation art. Mental power plus 100 permanently. Chu Yun's pupils shrank slightly. Without the 300% efficiency boost from the ice-fire homologous breathing method, the primordial void fireflame stone had still yielded a gain of 100 points. Truly worthy of containing the source of mental power, its effectiveness was outstanding. 1.5 hours passed. Mental power, 10023. Inside his mud palace chamber, the flame of his spirit blazed as large as a fist. The space within the mud palace had expanded 5-fold. Thought master achieved. 17 hours went by. Mental power, 10023. The spiritual flame swelled to the size of a basketball. Its color shifted from bright red to pale golden. The pale, gold flame burned silently, emitting neither heat nor sound, yet radiating an unnerving, oppressive aura. Grand Thought Master achieved. For days past. Mental power, 500,0023. Spirit Thought Master achieved. The spiritual power of a spirit thought master was no longer limited to perception and control. It could interfere with reality. With a single thought, he could shatter boulders 100 meters away or halt incoming arrows mid-air. No thought-based technique was required. This power came innately from being a spirit thought master. 8 days went by. Mental power, 100,0023. Holy Spirit Thought Master achieved. Chu Yun opened his eyes. There was no radiant glint or supernatural phenomenon in his gaze, only unfathomable calm. His mental power as a Holy Spirit Thought Master granted him near, unbelievable mastery over his own strength. Water swirled slowly around him in a vortex. His very presence caused the surrounding space to warp faintly. Chu Yun glanced down at the primordial void fire, flame stone in his palm. A small portion of its mental power source remained unabsorbed. Now that he had advanced to Holy Spirit Thought Master, he decided to save the remaining essence for later cultivation. He stored the crystal back into his system space and checked his system panel. God, Ascension Stairway System. Function, when the host enters a cultivation state, 1 minute of real world time equals 1 year of micro time flow inside the body. Current vitality, 3,100,0050. Current mental power, 100,0023. Cultivation arts. 8 extremes fist full perfection. Ice. Fire homologous breathing method full perfection. Prison. Suppressing meditation art full perfection. True fire formula full perfection. Tai light. Splitting sword full perfection. Special arts. 8. Extreme prison. Suppressing force. Samadhi true fire. Martial will. Truth. Realm insight. Martial. Spirit fusion. Tai light. Splitting sword. Flame. Shadow partition. King, level physique, Holy Spirit Thought Master Soul, plus martial will and martial spirit fusion. Right now, I could fight on even ground even against a martial honored warrior. A faint smile tugged at Chu Yun's lips. He lifted his gaze toward the dark water surface blocking his sight. It was time to leave. Chu Yun sent his mental power rippling out like invisible waves, sweeping silently across the cavern. Lu Qingxue was curled up beside the pool, leaning against the cavern wall. Her breathing was slow and steady, her eyelashes fluttering occasionally. She was clearly asleep. She had barely rested over these past 15 days. Chu Yun surfaced soundlessly, not disturbing a single drop of water. His holy spirit, thought, master mental power formed an ultra-thin barrier around him, repelling all moisture. The moment he broke free from the water, his clothes were completely dry. He retrieved a clean jacket from his system space, knelt down, and gently draped it over Lu Qingshua's shoulders. Light as his movement was, Lu Qingxue still woke. Her eyelashes fluttered sharply, her body tensed instantly. Frost burst forth in her right palm, sending a biting chill through the air. Now that her ice, soul divine body had fully awakened, her combat instincts were twice as fast as before. Then she saw Chu Yun. The wariness faded from her cool eyes at once. Confusion from just waking washed over her, followed by unmistakable relief. You. Lu Qingxue blinked, half convinced she might be hallucinating. Have you finished cultivating? Chu Yun nodded briefly, withdrew his hand naturally, and stood upright. Lu Qingxue sat up straight. The jacket slipped from her shoulder, and she reached out instinctively to grab it. Her hand froze mid-motion, her gaze locking abruptly onto Chu Yun's face. Your mental power broke through. Chu Yun was taken aback. He had just advanced to Holy Spirit Thought Master and had not yet fully reigned in his spiritual energy. Even without releasing it intentionally, his overwhelming presence spilled softly out of his mud palace, forming an invisible spiritual field. Presumably, after fully awakening her ice, soul divine body, Lu Qingshue's senses had improved dramatically, allowing her to catch a trace of that anomaly. Just a tiny bit. Chu Yun held his thumb and forefinger apart to show a minuscule gap. At the same time, he willed his overflowing spiritual power to retract completely. Once his mental energy was held in check, outsiders would find it nearly impossible to detect its strength, even without special concealment treasures. Lu Qingxue frowned slightly. The oppressive aura vanished in an instant, as if what she had sensed had been nothing but an illusion. You have improved greatly as well. Chu Yun swept his eyes over her figure. Your vitality has hit 900 points. Peak martial apprentice. Now that your ice, soul divine body is fully awakened, your cultivation speed has increased considerably. Lu Qingshue's lips parted. 900 vitality points. Peak martial apprentice. She had wanted to show off her progress. Yet Chu Yun's casual compliment, paired with his unruffled expression, made her swallow her boast before it left her mouth. It's hardly great improvement. Lu Qingxue turned her head away in mock pique. Her voice remained cool, carrying a hint of unconscious softness. Compared to you, my breakthrough is barely noticeable. She stood up and pulled Chu Yun's jacket tighter around her shoulders. Why keep comparing yourself to me and pushing yourself so hard? Chu Yun laughed. Let's go. He turned and walked toward the cavern exit. Lu Qingxue followed behind him, and the two made their way upward along the tunnel they had come through. Outside the secret realm, on the eastern slope of the Kanglan mountain range, Song Qingtian stood atop a hillside, hands clasped behind his back, his sharp gaze fixed firmly on the purple teleportation gateway. His cigarette burned all the way to the filter tip without him noticing. Sir, your cigarette. A young officer behind him spoke quietly. Song Qingtian glanced down, dropped the cigarette butt, and crushed it beneath his boot. He pulled a fresh cigarette from his pack and placed it between his lips. He had stood on that hillside for nearly an hour. Fewer than 2 days remained until the secret realm closed. Zhao Yueli and Dong Qing had exited 3 days earlier. Neither bore serious injuries, and Zhao Yueli radiated obvious delight, clearly having reaped great rewards within the realm. Warriors from smaller clans had trickled out one after another. Some returned laden with treasure, others stumbled out exhausted. But all had survived. Only the Wang family, the Li family, plus Chu Yun and Lu Qingxue, had not yet emerged. Song Qingtian knew that Wang Zikai had entered the secret realm accompanied by He Chong, a grandmaster, ranked warrior. Though this violated protocol, the Wang clan had held influence in Zhongzhou for 300 years, and as a martial king guarding the secret realm, he could not afford to openly snub them. If the arrogant Wang Zikai attacked Chu Yun inside the secret realm, Song Qingtian's fingers rubbed his lighter anxiously. He had personally recruited Chu Yun and publicly endorsed him as a promising military talent. If something befell Chu Yun within the secret realm, Song Qingtian would lose far more than his reputation. The prestige of the military itself would suffer. Moreover, Zhou Yin had praised Chu Yun highly, calling him a once-in-a-generation genius. If that prodigy perished on his watch, he would not know how to break the news to Zhou Yin. Yet he could not bar Chu Yun from entering the secret realm. Great warriors could not be raised in sheltered conditions. This was his own rule, an iron principle of military talent development. Every true strong survivor had crawled out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood, no exceptions. He could only hope the pair would return safely. Sir, the young officer's voice cut through his thoughts. Activity at the gateway. Song Qingtian snapped his head upward. The purple teleportation gateway shuddered violently, its surface rippling like water. A slender figure stepped out from the light. Lu Qingxue. She wore an ill-fitting black tracksuit jacket, her long hair tied in a high ponytail. Her steps were steady, her breathing deep, and a contained, frigid aura hung about her. Song Qingtian saw at once that she had broken through to martial apprentice and stood on the verge of advancing to grand martial apprentice. Her ice, soul divine body had fully awakened. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than the gateway rippled again. A second figure emerged. Clad in matching black tracksuit trousers, hands tucked casually in his pockets, Chu Yun sauntered forward as if out for a stroll. His expression was neutral. He showed neither relief at surviving danger nor pride over his gains, retaining his usual calm. Song Qingtian's tense heart finally relaxed. They were alive. That was what mattered. He was about to stride downhill to greet them. Then a faint probe brushed over him. Light and subtle as a breeze skimming across a lake, it left no trace. But Song Qingtian was no ordinary man, a top-tier martial king forged through 30 years of battlefield combat. The instant that mental touch landed on him, he pinpointed its source. Chu Yun, the youth who had just exited the secret realm, turned his head slightly, locking eyes with him atop the hillside. Their gazes met across the distance. Chu Yun gave a small nod, a polite gesture of respect toward his senior, then looked away as though nothing had occurred. Song Qingtian stood frozen, his fingers trembling faintly. 1,000 meters separated them. Tents, vehicles, boulders, and crowds lay between them. He had hidden his aura completely, blending into the landscape like a rock. Even a grand thought master would have struggled to detect him, much less lock onto his position from so far away. Yet Chu Yun had done it. This boy, Song Qingtian drew a long breath and exhaled slowly. Gravitas melted from his features, replaced by irrepressible joy. He could not stop himself from smiling. That boy had broken through yet again. He turned and marched downhill, his military boots striking sharp sounds against the loose gravel. Sir, where are you going? Come with me. Song Qingtian did not look back, amusement ringing in his voice. We're going to welcome Chu Yun. The young officer stared in surprise. Had he heard correctly? Their commander intended to greet Chu Yun personally? Why? He had merely explored a secret realm, not earned military honors.